Chapter 1080. Hua Xiaoheng's frustration and anger, as well as faint bitterness and sourness, disappeared with a gentle brush of Gu Nianji's soft hand. Holding her hand to his chin, Hua Xiaoheng kissed her slender and soft fingers one by one. Gu Nianji never kept her nails long and always trimmed them clean and tidy. Her plump fingertips and pink fingernails were all beautiful in Hua Xiaoheng's eyes. His green stubble had just appeared and his chin was a bit messy. It added an even more masculine aura to Hua Xiaoheng's stunning handsomeness. The small stubble pricked her hand and it hurt and itched. Gu Nianji laughed softly. From the corner of her eye, she saw He Jichu's back as he walked out. Her laughter stopped abruptly and her fair and delicate face blushed. She snatched her hand away in embarrassment and whispered, "Professor, he is here too. It's my fault." She woke up from her dream and saw Hua Xiaoheng the moment she opened her eyes. The comfort and reliability that came from her heart instantly freed her from the nightmares. Whether it was a dream or reality, Hua Xiaoheng was the one who saved her. When she saw him, it was hard for her to look at anyone else. Moreover, He Jichu was sitting on the sofa at the foot of the bed. How could Gu Nianji see him at first glance? However, her behavior just now would have been fine if it was just her and Hua Xiaoheng together. But with someone else in the room, it seemed a bit frivolous. Gu Nianji pulled up the blanket to cover her face and said sullenly, "Hua Xiao, go out first. I'm going to get up." Hua Xiaoheng felt at ease and stood up energetically to pull her blanket away. "Don't hold it in. The air under the blanket isn't good. Get up, I'll make you breakfast and then we'll go home." Gu Nianji agreed and obediently sat up on the bed. Hua Xiaoheng walked out of the guest room with a satisfied smile on his face and stepped into He Jichu's kitchen. He Jichu was making coffee again. When he heard someone come in, he looked back but didn't say anything. Hua Xiaoheng opened his fridge and looked inside. "You don't even have eggs here? What did he eat every day? Eating wind and drinking dew?" He Jichu didn't even bother to look at her. He said coldly, "If you want eggs, ask the hen. Why are you asking me? Aren't you eating breakfast?" Hua Xiaoheng closed the fridge and wondered if he should take Gu Nianji back to the official residence for breakfast. "I've already ordered breakfast. It'll be here soon." He Jichu looked away. "Is Nianji up yet?" "Yeah, I'm up." Hua Xiaoheng saw that He Jichu had already ordered food, so he wasn't in a hurry to leave. He took out his cell phone and sat down at the table to watch the news. He Jichu brewed black Colombian coffee for himself and heated milk for Gu Nianji. He didn't prepare anything for Hua Xiaoheng. Not long after, the hotel's breakfast arrived. There were toasted pancakes, waffles, blueberry muffins, maple syrup imported from Canada, yellow scrambled eggs, brown bacon, South American nuts, large raisins from the West, dried cranberries imported from the United States, and finally 2 huge beef burgers that were half a foot tall. He Jichu pointed at the 2 half-foot-tall burgers and said impatiently, "These are yours. Do you want them or not?" Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He really wasn't used to eating out. However, he hadn't eaten a single grain of rice or water since yesterday afternoon. He was indeed hungry and thirsty. Gu Nianji finished washing up and walked over. She smiled at He Jichu. "Good morning, Professor He." Looking at the sumptuous breakfast on the table, Gu Nianji praised him exaggeratedly. "So much delicious food. It's all my favorite food. Thank you, Professor He." The corners of He Jichu's lips curled up, but his smile wasn't obvious. However, his tone was much warmer. "Sit. Eat more if you like it." Hua Xiaoheng didn't hesitate to take a beef burger and take a bite. After swallowing, he said to Gu Nianji, "Aren't your favorite breakfast steamed buns and shrimp wontons?" Gu Nianji was speechless. What was wrong with this person? Don't hit people in the face and don't point out their shortcomings when scolding them. She felt guilty towards Professor He and couldn't even say something nice to please him. Gu Nianji glared at Hua Xiaoheng and smiled at He Jichu. "I like them all. I like them all." She originally meant to say that she liked traditional breakfast steamed buns and shrimp wontons, as well as Western-style breakfast like pancakes and bacon. However, He Jichu and Hua Xiaoheng both felt strange when they heard it. The 2 of them didn't say anything and began eating breakfast with great vigor. The breakfast on the table was swept clean by the 3 of them like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. Gu Nianji clutched her stomach and leaned back in her seat. "Professor He is feeding a pig. After this meal, I feel like I can go 3 days without food like a camel." Hua Xiaoheng laughed at her. "You think you can go 3 days with that small stomach of yours? Eating is like eating snacks. You can eat 5 or 6 meals a day." "What's wrong? Can't I eat?" Gu Nianji rolled her eyes. "I earn my own money to eat. I won't eat you poor." It was clearly an argument, but to He Jichu, it was an eyesore. He waved his hand impatiently. If you want to flirt, go away. Don't pollute the air here. Gu Nianji was speechless. Fine. No matter what she did today, it would be wrong. It was better to speak less and do less. For the next 10 minutes, Gu Nianji didn't say a word. It wasn't until she left with Huo Xiaoheng that she whispered to He Jichu, "Professor He, thank you so much for yesterday. Last night was when she was at her weakest." She sincerely thanked He Jichu for bringing her back to accompany her. He Jichu originally wanted to close the door, but hearing her sincerity, he couldn't help but rub her head. "Go back and rest for 2 days. You can go back to work at the Senate after the election results are out." Gu Nianji originally wanted to participate in the bilateral meeting with the German delegation to China, but Reinitz was there, so she felt uncomfortable. Nodding, she said, "Okay, I'll listen to Professor He." Gu Nianji had never been so obedient in front of He Jichu. He Jichu wasn't used to it. After a moment of silence, he reluctantly said, "But if you want to go, it's not a big deal. Reinitz won't dare to do anything to you." He was only afraid that Reinitz would make Gu Nianji fall for him. That would be the worst. He was a step late, but Huo Xiaoheng might not be early. The timing of Reinitz's appearance was perfect. The little girl was only 19 years old and was at the age of her first love. There would be plenty of good times in the future. Who said she had to stay by Huo Xiaoheng's side? He Jichu looked up at Huo Xiaoheng and chuckled. Major General Hua is so busy, but Reinitz isn't. He has plenty of time to play games with beautiful women. Huo Xiaoheng quietly wrapped his arms around Gu Nianji's waist and said calmly, "Our Nianji is also very busy. She doesn't have time to play games with other people." It was the third watch. It was still the third watch. P.S. Vote for your monthly votes as soon as possible. Let's see if we can stay in the top 10 this time. Let's do it together. Wax. Chapter 1081. Gu Nianji was embarrassed and pouted. "Huo Xiao, you fell for it. Professor, he said that Reinitz was playing games with a beautiful woman, not me. Why did you automatically put me in?" This was a word game she couldn't play anymore. Only Huo Xiaoheng would fall for it, right? He Jichu and Huo Xiaoheng both looked at her for a long time before looking away. Huo Xiaoheng pretended to be weak and said dryly, "Yes, I misunderstood. Professor, he is a big shot in the legal world. I'm no match for this kind of word game." Gu Nianji was speechless. As far as Gu Nianji knew, Huo Xiaoheng's eloquence was no worse than He Jichu's. He Jichu looked down and didn't say anything else. He closed the door in front of them. Gu Nianji rubbed her nose and yawned. She muttered, "I'll go back to sleep." Huo Xiaoheng wanted to take Gu Nianji to his official residence, but he changed his mind when he thought of Reinitz. "Let's go." Huo Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji downstairs. When they arrived downstairs, Gu Nianji saw Huo Xiaoheng's modified Hummer SUV extended military vehicle. She smiled and pulled Huo Xiaoheng's hand. "Aren't you afraid of people gossiping about you parking your car in front of Professor He's building?" Huo Xiaoheng didn't answer her hypothetical question. He nonchalantly opened the backseat door for her and got in. "Go to the Hepingli precinct." Huo Xiaoheng ordered Fan Jian, the orderly, in the front. The Hepingli precinct was the second-hand house Gu Nianji had bought. She originally thought Huo Xiaoheng wanted to take her to his official residence at the headquarters base and was still thinking about how to refuse. Now that he took the initiative to back down, she sighed in relief. She lazily sat in the back seat and quickly fell asleep again. The high fever last night had indeed taken a toll on her vitality. Sleep was one of the ways the human body healed itself. Therefore, people who had just recovered from a serious illness and were weak were very sleepy. When Gu Nianji woke up, she found herself in the bedroom of the apartment in the Hepingli precinct. The setting sun shone through the half-closed curtains and sprinkled a beautiful layer of gold on the cherrywood bay windowsill. Gu Nianji rubbed her eyes and grumbled as she sat up. She looked up and saw a handsome figure sitting in front of her desk. His arms were trembling slightly. He was probably typing quickly on the keyboard of the laptop. The computer screen was filled with dense green data. She raised her wrist and looked at her watch. It was already past 5 in the afternoon. It was about 9 in the morning when they returned from Professor He's place. She had fallen asleep after returning, and Huo Xiaoheng had stayed here with her the entire time? This had never happened before. Gu Nianji hugged her knees as she sat on the bed. She tilted her head and smiled at Huo Xiaoheng's back. She couldn't get enough of him. Huo Xiaoheng had indeed stayed the entire day to accompany Gu Nianji. Although her fever had subsided, Huo Xiaoheng was still worried. He called Chen Lai and asked him to bring his medical suitcase, which was comparable to a simple battlefield hospital, over to examine her. He only let Chen Lai leave after confirming that she no longer had a fever and that there were no other problems with her body. After Chen Lai left, Huo Hua Xiaoheng turned on his portable laptop and connected it to the central control system. He had been tracking down the place where the AI programming language had hidden the data. The amount of work needed to find the random hidden information in the vast programming language was indeed not an ordinary amount of work. Because of the sudden and strange magnetic field in Sea City, his work had been interrupted, so it had been delayed for a while. Now he had to restart the search. He hoped it wouldn't be too late. Hong Kongquan had already become a wanted criminal, but he still hadn't been caught. Hua Xiaoheng could only be sure of one thing, and that was that Hong Kongquan hadn't escaped the borders. He was still in the Huaxia Empire. He concentrated on his work for 4 to 5 hours until his neck felt a little sore. He reached out and rubbed it. Suddenly he realized something and looked back. Gun Yinji waved at him and smiled. "Hua Xiao, I'm awake." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He turned off the computer and got up to walk to Gun Yinji's bedside. He reached out to feel her forehead. Very good. Her body temperature was normal. Hua Xiaoheng patted her little face, which was flushed from sleep. "Are you hungry? What do you want to eat tonight?" Gun Yinji nodded obediently. "I'm hungry. I'm starving." Although Gun Yinji had eaten a sumptuous breakfast at He Jichu's place in the morning and had teased herself about not eating for 3 days like a camel, the truth was that she couldn't even last a day. Hua Xiaoheng also remembered what Gun Yinji had said that morning. He patted her head. "Fan Jian bought 2 grouper and put them in the fridge. There's also some sea cucumber. I've already made scallops and grouper porridge in the stew pot. There's also red dates and sea cucumber stew." Gun Yinji couldn't stand it anymore before Hua Xiaoheng finished speaking. She gulped and slipped out of bed. She ran to the bathroom and said, "Hua Xiao, hurry up and set the food. I'll be right back after I wash my face." Hua Xiaoheng curled his lips and went to the kitchen to get the soup and porridge. He placed them on the dining table. He had just set the bowls and chopsticks when he heard the doorbell ring. He thought it was strange. Who would be visiting Gun Yinji at this hour? If it was a close friend, they would definitely call to inform her first. If it was someone unfamiliar, they probably wouldn't be able to enter the neighborhood. The guard at the entrance would first call to confirm their identity before letting them in. Who was this person? Hua Xiaoheng walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A blond, blue-eyed man stood outside the door. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, and his handsome face, which was as abstinent as a religion, made him stand out from the crowd. It was actually Reinitz. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes flashed. He calmly opened the door and said leisurely to the stunned Reinitz, "Major General Reinitz, nice to meet you." Hua Xiaoheng spoke in English. The surprise on Reinitz's face flashed, but he quickly regained his composure. He nodded politely to Hua Xiaoheng and deliberately pretended not to know him. He said in German, "Hello, is Sirius home?" He deliberately used Gun Yinji's English name to show that they were close. Hua Xiaoheng looked at him and smiled. He also switched to German. "Yes, please come in." This was his territory, and Hua Xiaoheng was waiting for Reinitz to walk into the trap. As expected, Reinitz hesitated when Hua Xiaoheng generously invited him in. However, he quickly nodded and said with a smile, "That's great. I'm here to visit Sirius and see how she's doing. Yesterday we reunited as old friends and were very happy. She drank a few too many glasses with me at the Senate dinner and then said she had a headache. I was very worried. She didn't attend the bilateral meeting between the two countries today. I heard she was sick." When Reinitz said this, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but think of the scene he saw on the big outdoor screen in Sea City last night. The two of them sat facing each other and raised their glasses, smiling extremely charmingly. Hua Xiaoheng felt disgusted, but his face remained calm. He smiled and invited Reinitz in. Nianji did have a fever after coming back last night. The fever only subsided this morning and she slept for a whole day. She just woke up. We're about to have dinner. Has Major General Reinitz had dinner? Reinitz immediately said, "Really? That's great. I haven't had dinner yet." The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth twitched. He thought to himself, "I'm just being polite. Do you have to take advantage of me so quickly?" However, since he'd already said it, Hua Xiaoheng wasn't so petty. "Then let's eat together. It's a common meal." Reinitz handed a paper bag to Hua Xiaoheng. "This is Mother Hannah's handmade white sausage. It's made from black pork raised in Bavaria. Sirius really liked it when she was in Germany, so I specially brought it over for her." Hua Xiaoheng took the paper bag and looked at it. "Thank you, Major General Reinitz." He then asked him, "How do I make this white sausage?" Reinitz reached out. "Give it to me. I'll do it." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Gun Yinji washed her face and changed into a casual teddy outfit. She walked out of the bedroom briskly and said crisply, "Hua Xiao, Where's dinner? I'm so hungry I can eat a cow. Reinitz heard Gu Nianji's voice and couldn't help smiling. Without waiting for Hua Xiaoheng to reply, he had already walked around Hua Xiaoheng and raised the paper bag in his hand. He said in German, "Sirius, I brought you Mother Hannah's handmade white sausage. Do you want to eat it tonight? I'll make it for you right away." Gu Nianji was caught off guard and met Reinitz's smiling blue eyes. She was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. "Reinitz, why are you at my house?" "Major General Reinitz is here to visit you." Hua Xiaoheng walked over with a smile and said dryly, "He said you guys were drinking together last night and you had a lot to drink." This was the first update. It was still the third update. A reminder to everyone about the recommendation votes and monthly votes. The monthly votes were 6,300 plus updates at 1 p.m., and the third update was at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Sing_Sing for your 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. P.S. Today I overhauled Chapter 504 Who Will Fight Me, 11, and Chapter 505 Who Will Fight Me, 12. It wasn't because they were blocked, but because I found that there were some problems with the plot of these two chapters, so I rewrote them and added some more important content. Everyone who was reading at 7 p.m. could download and refresh the page. If it was another official channel, they might have to wait for the system to refresh before they could read it. They could try it in the afternoon. Mwah. Chapter 1082. Gu Nianji was speechless. What did she drink? She was drinking grape juice. Although it looked like wine. Gu Nianji chuckled and smiled ambiguously at Reinitz. "Major General Reinitz, don't trick me. I only drank grape juice yesterday. How did I drink alcohol?" She wasn't old enough to drink alcoholic beverages. She hadn't even drunk beer before. Reinitz looked at Hua Xiaoheng, who had a typical fashion magazine model's expression, and his voice became even gentler. "Sirius, I didn't make myself clear and made this man misunderstand. Actually, I only said that we drank too much yesterday. I didn't say that we were drinking." He spread his hands and apologized very sincerely. As the saying goes, one doesn't hit a smiling person. Reinitz took the initiative to lower himself for others to step on. Gu Nianji couldn't really step on him, could she? She could only smile sheepishly and say, "It's fine as long as the misunderstanding is cleared up, right?" Although she was talking to Reinitz, she was watching Hua Xiaoheng from the corner of her eyes. Hua Xiaoheng had both hands in his trouser pockets. He still had a standard fashion magazine model's expression on his face, cold and elegant, deep and sexy. He nodded. "Yes, I see." He then looked at Reinitz. "Then Major General Reinitz, please make white sausages." Reinitz agreed with a smile and asked Gu Nianji, "Sirius, where's the kitchen?" Gu Nianji was embarrassed and wanted to take him there. "It's over there. Follow me." She then said, "The kitchen is very small." It actually wasn't small, but it was certainly very small compared to Reinitz's castle in Germany. "It's okay. I can savor the taste of white sausages for an entire year in Sirius's kitchen." Reinitz squinted his blue eyes and smiled. The small groove on his chin looked like it was filled with fine wine. Just looking at it would make one drunk. Gu Nianji looked away and walked towards the kitchen. However, Hua Xiaoheng grabbed her hand and didn't let her lead the way. "The kitchen is over there, not a maze." Major General Reinitz even conquered the Alps, let alone a small two-bedroom apartment. "Come with me to the dining room and wait for Major General Reinitz's specialty white sausages." Gu Nianji couldn't break free from Hua Xiaoheng's grip, so she could only smile wryly and point to the kitchen. "It's over there. The kitchen utensils are all German. You should know how to use them." Reinitz didn't care about Hua Xiaoheng's attitude at all. From start to finish, his attention was only on Gu Nianji. "All right, I'll go by myself. Wait for me in the dining room. I'll bring it over when it's done," Reinitz said as he headed to the kitchen. Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji's hand to the dining room. When they were out of sight of Reinitz, Gu Nianji lowered her voice and said, "Hua Xiao, what are you doing? If you don't stare at what Reinitz is cooking, would you dare to eat it later?" The professional image of Hua Xiaoheng and the others depicted what it meant to not recognize people indiscriminately, speak indiscriminately and eat indiscriminately, because it could really kill. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes flashed. "It's okay. Anyway, I don't eat it." "Okay, you said it." Gu Nianji laughed. The crystal chandelier above her head was dazzling and reflected in her crystal-clear eyes like two dancing flames, passionate and dangerous. Hua Xiaoheng's Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he swallowed with difficulty. He still maintained a nonchalant expression and looked away. At that moment, Gu Nianji's attention was attracted by the dishes on the dining table. In the middle of the table was a stew pot that looked like ancient pottery. The soup was clear and had tiny oil droplets floating on it. The large and plump red dates had soaked up the soup and looked delicious at first glance. The sea cucumber was stewed until it was sticky, and it was very tasty when chewed together with the chewy ground chicken. Gunyanji ate a bite of the sea cucumber, then a bite of the ground chicken without any antibiotics, and then a red date. It was so delicious that she wanted to swallow her tongue. She scooped a small bowl for Hua Xiaoheng with a spoon and placed it in front of him. She smiled and said, "Hua Xiao, you eat too. It's really delicious." Hua Xiaoheng bowed slightly and said, "Thank you," then picked up the spoon to eat. Gunyanji then scooped herself a bowl of scallop and grouper porridge. The soup was milky white and the scallop was fresh. The already tender grouper fillets had a natural sweet taste that soothed Gunyanji's dulled taste buds after her fever. She was extremely engrossed in eating. If it weren't for the fact that she still remembered Hua Xiaoheng's many years of teachings, Gunyanji wanted to eat while smacking her lips. She ate like a little pig fighting for food. Delicious food could greatly relax people's nerves and soothe their emotions. Ma Chichi had once told Gunyanji that there was nothing in this world that couldn't be solved with a good meal. If there was, then eat 2 good meals. Gunyanji couldn't help but laugh when she thought of Ma Chichi's funny face when she said that. Hua Xiaoheng actually didn't have much of an appetite, but seeing Gunyanji eating so happily, he also ate something. When Reinitz brought over the white sausages, Gunyanji had already finished her first round of dinner. She was supporting her head with her hand and smiling as she talked to Hua Xiaoheng, who was sitting across from her. The soup bowls and porridge pots on the table all had traces of being moved. Gunyanji saw Reinitz come out and quickly stood up. Embarrassed, she said, "Sorry, Reinitz. We ate a little first." Reinitz wasn't angry. He walked over and placed the long bone china plate with the white sausages in front of Gunyanji. He said gently, "You have to eat if you're hungry. Why apologize? You don't owe anyone." He spoke in a serious tone, but his eyes drifted over to Hua Xiaoheng as if he was implying something. Hua Xiaoheng seemed to suddenly become slow. He smiled and asked Reinitz to sit down. He then asked Gunyanji to get some bread for Reinitz to eat with the white sausages. After Gunyanji went to the kitchen, the 2 smiling men's faces in the dining room darkened. They sat under the chandelier in the dining room, one with his arms crossed and the other with his long legs stretched out. They looked at each other expressionlessly. The dining room was as quiet as a vacuum. After a while, Reinitz was the first to break the silence. "Major General Hua, the Huaxia Empire obtained all of the German Federal Intelligence Service's intelligence and system data. Shouldn't you give us an explanation?" His tone was no longer gentle. His German was sonorous and forceful. He looked like he was going to flip the table in the next minute. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head calmly and spread his hands. "Major General Reinitz, why do you say that? May I ask what evidence you have to prove that we obtained all of the data? Also, isn't this a topic that you should be discussing in the Senate today? It's already time to get off work. Aren't you asking the wrong person in the wrong place?" Reinitz stared closely at Hua Xiaoheng. His deep blue eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. "Asking the wrong person in the wrong place? Major General Hua, your ability to play dumb is top-notch as well." Reinitz's ascetic expression was restrained. He was so serious that he looked like he was about to announce that war was about to break out. Only he knew that all of the gentleness he had in his life had probably been used up in that 1 month with Gunyanji. Before seeing her, he didn't need gentleness. After she left, he had nowhere to store his gentleness. However, Hua Xiaoheng was fearless. He leaned forward slightly and looked at Reinitz provocatively. "Is that so? Who's playing dumb? Major General Reinitz, can you tell me which country your immediate superior is from?" Reinitz's expression instantly changed. His blue eyes were so blue that they were almost black. After a while, he brushed his blonde hair as if nothing had happened and said calmly, "I don't understand what Major General Hua means. I came with sincerity to negotiate with you. If you don't want to talk, then forget it." One of the main purposes of Reinitz's visit to China with the German Chancellor was to see Hua Xiaoheng. Of course, he wanted to see him in private and not in public. "It's not that I don't want to talk." Hua Xiaoheng changed the subject. "But there are some things that really can't be discussed. This is a matter of principle." "For example?" Reinitz raised his eyebrows. "What can't be discussed? Can Major General Hua tell me?" "For example, Pink Piggy." Hua Xiaoheng looked unruly. "We don't know who Pink Piggy is, but if we find out one day, we won't hand her over. You can go back and explain it to your immediate superiors. That's my attitude." It was the second update, and the monthly pass was 6,300 plus updates. It was still the third update today. A reminder to everyone about the recommendation votes and monthly votes. At 7:00 p.m. the third update. P.S. Please re-download Chapter 504 Who Will Fight Me, 11, and Chapter 505 Who Will Fight Me, 12. If you see this sentence at the end of the chapter, this chapter has been modified. This is the modified content. Moi. Chapter 1083. Actually, both of them were well aware of who the pink piggy was, but there were many times when things could be done but not said. Even if they knew, they had to pretend not to know. Wuxiaoheng and Reinitz had no intention of revealing the truth. Wuxiaoheng didn't deal with Reinitz like he dealt with Alice only because Reinitz didn't actually hand Gunyanji over in the end. Reinitz's eyes were dark as he sat there motionlessly. After a while he sighed and said dryly, "What should we do? No one knows who the pink piggy is. Do we have to search for her footprints on the entire Blue Planet's network?" Wuxiaoheng's heart skipped a beat and he said meaningfully, "The amount of data on the internet is astronomical. Which country do you think has such a powerful supercomputer that can search the entire internet for the whereabouts of the pink piggy?" Reinitz and Wuxiaoheng were talking about computer terms. In the online world, one could use the method of tracing an IP to find a person's online footprints. Even if it was a fake IP, it was still an IP. Using a fake IP, one might not be able to find the real owner, but by seeing the person's movements on the internet and analyzing the logical relationships between these movements, one might be able to find the real person. Reinitz nodded with a smile. That's true. Even the US military laboratory probably doesn't have such a powerful supercomputer. However, when hardware development reaches a bottleneck, it's time to test the limits of human intelligence. It's not impossible to find a good algorithm, write an optimized application program, and conduct data analysis under the current hardware conditions. This was the time to compete on the intelligence of the people of each country. Reinitz's words made Wuxiaoheng fall into deep thought. Of course, he wasn't thinking about how to find the pink piggy. Instead, he was thinking about whether he could use this method to search for the data hidden in the 4 lines of AI programming language. Gunyanji knew that Wuxiaoheng had something to say to Reinitz, so she dawdled in the kitchen and picked a piece of French baguette-shaped bread dough from the cupboard. She slightly kneaded it into a long strip and put it in the oven to bake. She preheated the oven in 5 minutes and took it out in another 15. She sliced it like a white sausage and placed it in a wicker basket covered with a small white cloth. "Reinitz, try our French bread." Gunyanji smiled as she placed the basket in Reinitz's hand. He smiled and nodded at Gunyanji. "Thank you, Sirius." He ate a slice of French baguette, chewed it carefully and paired it with a slice of white sausage. The taste was unexpectedly fragrant, even better than eating authentic German bread with white sausage in Germany. Reinitz couldn't help but praise, "Sirius, did you bake this bread or buy it? It's delicious, especially with Mother Hannah's white sausage." Gunyanji smiled proudly and pointed at the crust of the baguette. "I brushed a little scallion oil on the back and baked it with the fragrance of scallion oil. I think it goes perfectly with the cardamom seasoning in the white sausage." The scallion oil neutralized the little fishy smell of the cardamom, and the cardamom suppressed the lingering smell of the scallion oil. The combination was seamless and even gave the taste buds a new experience. Reinitz was full of praise and practically ate an entire loaf of baguette all by himself. He also ate most of the white sausage he brought. Gunyanji only ate a few pieces. She looked at the empty plate with regret and said, "What a pity, I actually finished all of it." Reinitz seemed embarrassed and smiled. "It's my fault. I brought you a gift but I ended up eating the most." However, he immediately comforted Gunyanji. "It's okay, I'll bring you some more tomorrow. Mother Hannah made a lot, but I was worried that I wouldn't be able to find your house today, so I only brought a little." Wuxiaoheng, who was deep in thought, looked over with a sharp gaze. Did he immediately book a date with the white sausage tomorrow? Wuxiaoheng glanced at him and said to Gunyanji, "Major General Reinitz is an important figure in the German delegation to China this time. Nyenji, don't let these small things interfere with Major General Reinitz's work." "I know." Gunyanji nodded quickly. "Reinitz, I was just saying. Don't take it to heart." "How can I not take it to heart? Every word you say, I take it to heart. Do you want me to repeat it again?" Reinitz said with a half-smile. He almost couldn't tell whether it was true or not. He only had eyes for Gunyanji. Although Wuxiaoheng knew Reinitz was doing it on purpose, he still couldn't help but feel angry. He was treating him like a dead person. Gunyanji could feel Wuxiaoheng's anger rising, so she quickly smiled at Reinitz. "Young Master Reinitz, you really like to joke. It's really different in Germany than it is now." Reinitz could hear the warning in Gunyanji's tone, so he tactfully rubbed his nose and stood up to clean up the dishes. I ate the most, so I'll clean up. Gu Nianji couldn't really let the guest clean up, so she also cleaned up and went to the kitchen. Wu Xiaoheng sat alone in the dining room, his mind divided. Half of it was thinking about how the 4 lines of AI programming language generated data, and the other half was focused on the kitchen, listening to the movements there. He noticed that when Reinitz spoke to Gu Nianji, his tone was especially gentle and slow. The stiff German that came out of Reinitz's mouth actually had a hint of 1,000 twists and turns. Although Gu Nianji was wary of Reinitz, she still beamed at him and was obviously amused. Wu Xiaoheng's eyes dimmed, and he decided to take Gu Nianji back to his official residence tonight. He couldn't let her stay here alone. Gu Nianji was in the kitchen with Reinitz putting the dishes in the dishwasher. In order to find a topic, she first asked him how he got into their neighborhood since the security was tight. Reinitz smiled and pretended to be confused. It was easy to get in. I said I was looking for you and the guard let me in. Gu Nianji knew it couldn't be that simple because the guard didn't call her to confirm. Reinitz must have done something, but it would probably be a little easier to get the truth out of him than from Wu Xiaoheng and He Zhichu. Gu Nianji could only change the topic and casually asked about the bilateral meeting between the 2 countries. Reinitz shrugged. I just went to listen in and saw them arguing quite loudly. Arguing? How so? Gu Nianji was very curious. She actually wanted to attend the meeting. Your diplomats and representatives of the Senate were very tough. First, they insisted that they didn't know who the pink piggy was. Then they said that even if they found out in the future, they would never hand her over because she didn't do anything against the laws of the Wuxia Empire. At most, it was a violation of foreign laws, but foreign governments had to have evidence for this kind of thing. If they wanted to arrest someone without evidence, that would be obstructing justice. Reinitz laughed as he spoke. But that's not what your country's internet is saying. I saw a lot of people jointly petitioning for the government to hand over the pink piggy to the United States and Germany. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief and curled her lips in disdain. I'm willing to bet that the petitioners are either Internet Water Army or public figures. If their words were true, then Hillary would be the President of the United States. Reinitz couldn't help but laugh at her words. His religiously ascetic face revealed an almost holy smile, like an angel descending to earth. Seeing Reinitz like this, Gu Nianji thought about what he had done in the past and secretly sighed in her heart. The so-called face of an angel, the heart of a devil. Wasn't this what Reinitz was like? The 2 of them chatted and laughed as they cleaned up the kitchen. They made coffee and milk tea and brought it out. Wu Xiaoheng had some ideas on how to use big data analysis at this time, so he was a bit anxious. He wanted to quickly return to the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters base to calculate his own ideas. However, he couldn't let Reinitz stay there to accompany Gu Nianji. Of course, he couldn't just chase him away. However, Reinitz was quite tactful and left after finishing a cup of coffee. As soon as he left, Wu Xiaoheng immediately said to Gu Nianji, Nianji, I have some ideas about the data hidden in those 4 lines of AI programs. Can you help me check the algorithm I just figured out in the next 2 days? Those 4 lines of AI programs were directly related to the evidence of Hong Kongquan's crime. Gu Nianji knew that Hong Kongquan had already become a wanted criminal. This person had a deep hatred for her, so she was very eager to bring him to justice. Therefore, she nodded without hesitation. Sure, no problem. Do you want to use my computer or yours? Go to my place. Wu Xiaoheng stood up and said in a low voice, right away. It was the 3rd watch. It was still the 3rd watch. A reminder for everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. Good night, my dears. Chapter 1084. Gu Nianji packed her bag and top-of-the-line laptop and followed Wu Xiaoheng back to the official residence at the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces. Putting down the things, the 2 of them didn't even take a sip of water and went directly to the central control room located on the 6th floor of the office building. At the entrance of the central control room, Zhou Qiyuan and the military police were fully armed and waiting. Seeing Wu Xiaoheng striding over, they stood up solemnly. All attention. Salute. Zhou Qiyuan ordered loudly and raised his right hand to give Wu Xiaoheng a textbook military salute. Gu Nianji quickly stopped and didn't follow. Instead, she stood at the corner and waited for Wu Xiaoheng to hand over to them. Wu Xiaoheng raised his hand and calmly walked over to take a look. How is the situation? What about the 27 staff members who were taken away by the Secret Service? Zhou Qiyuan said loudly, General Ji has already sent them back. They are now in the dormitory writing their reflections. Wu Xiaoheng was speechless. What reflections? Hua Xiaoheng placed his hand on the fingerprint sensor in the central control room and unlocked it. General Ji said that they didn't act decisively enough and should have controlled the entire Secret Service, but they only controlled the office building of the Secret Service. Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. His hand stopped and he turned to Zhou Qiyuan. Go and call them over. They have a special mission. Yes, Chief. Zhou Qiyuan nodded but worriedly asked Hua Xiaoheng in a low voice, but the Americans already have their information. Isn't it inappropriate to let them enter this central control room? Hua Xiaoheng turned around and looked at Zhou Qiyuan expressionlessly. He said calmly, the Americans also know my information. Does that mean I can't enter this central control room as well? These words were quite harsh. Zhou Qiyuan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly shook his head and said, Chief, I didn't mean that. But the army has its own discipline. We are a confidential unit, and the discipline requirements are stricter. If I said anything wrong, please punish me. Hua Xiaoheng folded his hands behind his back and looked down in thought. He said, You did things according to the rules, so I can't say you're wrong. But the situation of these 27 people is special. They were betrayed by a traitor, so the Americans learned about their situation. So, according to you, not only should we punish the traitor, but we should also punish the comrades who were framed by the traitor? Zhou Qiyuan quickly said, In the past, after the field staff failed, they were all transferred out of the Special Operations Forces, so I applied the old rules. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. I know. That's why I want to make other arrangements for these 27 people. Because their responsibilities are important and they are not ordinary staff, you can ask them. If they are willing to never step out of the country, whether it is for public or private reasons, and never change jobs or retire from the army, they can return to their previous posts. If they don't want to, then go through the procedures and let them transfer to another department. Zhou Qiyuan's eyes lit up and he quickly said, That's not bad. I'll prepare the volunteer letter. Those who are willing to agree to the conditions will sign the legally binding volunteer letter, and they can come back. If he doesn't want to, he won't sign it. You're very thoughtful. Hua Xiaoheng patted Zhou Qiyuan's shoulder approvingly. Go, I have a lot of work waiting for you. Zhou Qiyuan left half of the military police to be Hua Xiaoheng's security, and he took the other half to the isolated dormitory where the 27 people lived to talk to them. When they turned the corner, Zhou Qiyuan saw Gu Nianji and nodded at her. Expert Gu is here too. Gu Nianji was now a specially hired expert of the Special Operations Forces, especially in the area of computers. She had Zhao Liangzi and Hua Xiaoheng to recommend her. Gu Nianji didn't know what happened because the 27 people were taken away by Deputy Minister Feng and then caused a ruckus in the Secret Service, causing the Secret Service to be taken over by the military. The media reports were all suppressed, and the internet didn't even make a splash. She was also busy preparing to receive the German delegation to China, so she missed a good show. Zhou Qiyuan thought about it and felt that this matter was directly related to Gu Nianji, so he told her. Because of the Pink Piggy incident, 27 of our staff were taken away by Minister Hong Kongquan of the Secret Service. They were tortured and made to reveal who the Pink Piggy was. Gu Nianji. Her already large eyes suddenly widened even more. What? How could Hong Kongquan, that be *TCH, do such a thing? She hated Hong Kongquan because he had single-handedly pushed Hua Xiaoheng to the United States to save Tang Guiran. Not only did he put Hua Xiaoheng in danger and almost cost his life, but he also left her isolated and helpless in Germany. She was hunted down and almost destroyed her relationship with Hua Xiaoheng. She had always thought that she was the only one who had been hurt. She never thought that there were so many other people who had also fallen into danger because of her. She didn't even need to think to know that they had been tortured by the Secret Service. The torture they had suffered, Gu Nianji's eyes were red. Zhou Qiyuan could only comfort her. But don't worry. Our comrades in the Special Operations Forces have been tested countless times. The Secret Service can't do anything to them. But you are right. Hong Kongquan is indeed *TC. He is only fit to kneel and call the Americans daddy. Gu Nianji was about to cry, but after hearing Zhou Qiyuan's words, she couldn't help but want to laugh. Wiping the corners of her eyes with the back of her hand, Gu Nianji stepped aside. Then I won't hold you up anymore. Zhou Qiyuan nodded at her and led the military police to carry out Hua Xiaoheng's orders. Gu Nianji came to the door of the central control room and placed her hand on the sensor at the door. The door opened quickly, which meant that she had the authority. The military police hiding in the corner saw this and retreated. Gu Nianji walked into the central control room that she was no stranger to. The silver-gray stainless steel appliances, the white walls, the black top and the solid wood floor with an insulated layer was so clean that it could be used as a mirror. The postmodern central control room was simple yet magnificent. It reminded people of the vast universe, the deep sea and the endless starry sky. Standing there, even her soul felt like it was being cleansed. However, in the control room that had 3 floors and spanned hundreds of square meters, only Huo Xiaoheng was sitting there. There were several large screens in front of him, and the screens were all flashing with data. Gu Nianji's heart was in a mess. She walked to Huo Xiaoheng and sat down beside him. She whispered, "Huo Xiao, it's my fault." When she thought about how 27 people had been tortured because of her, she felt terrible. Huo Xiaoheng turned around and saw her face full of guilt, apology and sadness. He raised his hand and patted her head. "It has nothing to do with you. Don't blame yourself." Actually, he knew Gu Nianji's personality. If people treated her well, she would want to treat them well. Suddenly hearing that people were being tortured because of her, she wouldn't be Gu Nianji if she didn't feel guilty. Gu Nianji shook her head. "How can it have nothing to do with me? If I had known earlier, I would have done it secretly that day. If she hadn't revealed her identity, perhaps these people wouldn't have encountered such treatment, right? But that day, if she hadn't revealed her identity, how could she have encouraged everyone in the face of the United States' aggressive cyber attacks? Morale was really too important during a war." Gu Nianji stood up at that moment and revealed that she was the most powerful cyber hacker, Pink Piggy, which boosted everyone's morale and dealt a blow to the enemy's morale. It was no less than the nuclear bombs that fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan during World War II. As a senior commander, Huo Xiaoheng completely understood the role she played. Because he understood, his heart ached even more. He hugged Gu Nianji tightly and let her lean against his broad and solid chest. He told her firmly, "This isn't your fault. Hong Kongquan is the one at fault. It's those traitors who betrayed the interests of the country. Those 27 staff members weren't at fault either. As soldiers, if they couldn't even withstand such a small test, how could they even talk about combat effectiveness? Nianji, you did very well. You did even better than I imagined. You didn't do anything wrong." Gu Nianji's tears quietly flowed out. However, they weren't tears of sadness or pain. They were tears of being understood and cherished by the person she deeply loved. She hugged Huo Xiaoheng tightly. Not only did he love her, but he also understood her. He understood her better than anyone else in the world. The two of them hugged each other quietly in the spacious central control room and drew strength from each other's embrace. "You warm me and I grant you your wish." After a while, Gu Nianji asked in a muffled voice, "Huo Xiao, then how many people do you think will return here?" Gu Nianji had heard the conditions that Huo Xiaoheng had just stated. The price that those people had to pay was really not small. It wasn't something that ordinary people could do. Huo Xiaoheng patted her back and said in a low voice, "Of course I hope that the more the better, but I won't force it. In this job, if no one is willing to do it, there will be big problems." He would give them the honor they deserved, but he also required them to give their hearts and souls. The best situation was when the soldiers didn't betray the country, and the country didn't betray the soldiers. Gu Nianji sighed. "They are all the best of the best in your special operations forces. This time they suffered an unexpected disaster. It's okay." Huo Xiaoheng let go of her and picked up the tissue on the table to wipe her tears. "We were already mentally prepared for this kind of thing. They aren't the first and they won't be the last." Gu Nianji pursed her lips and didn't refute Huo Xiaoheng. No matter what, she hoped that such things would happen as little as possible. "This matter can't be resolved in a short time. Let's get to work first." As Huo Xiaoheng spoke, he gave her permission to enter the central control system and help him check the algorithm. Gu Nianji also felt that those people would definitely think about it for a few days. Before that, they could only rely on her and Huo Xiaoheng. After all, it wasn't easy to find people who could enter the central control room and operate the computers and instruments there. This time, the United States had almost wiped out all the elites. It was impossible for Huo Xiaoheng not to be angry. However, he didn't say anything and silently shouldered all the heavy burdens alone. Even if the sky fell, he would stand between heaven and earth to help everyone. Gu Nianji stopped her racing thoughts and secretly glanced at Huo Xiaoheng before also immersing herself in the verification. After an unknown amount of time, the sensor video in front of Huo Xiaoheng suddenly turned on. Zhou Qiyuan appeared on the video. "Chief, it's done. Please open the door." Huo Xiaoheng was slightly stunned. He looked at his watch and saw that only half an hour had passed. "The volunteer forms have all been signed?" "Yes." "They've all been signed," Zhou Qiyuan said seriously. "They're here too." Hua Xiaoheng was in need of help, so he quickly pressed the button to open the door and walked to the door with Gunyanji. The door opened, and a tall soldier wearing the black uniform of the Special Operations Forces appeared in front of them. All attention. Salute. Gunyanji quietly counted over. 27 people, not a single one missing. This was the first night watch. Today was still the third night watch. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. Monthly votes at 1 p.m., 6,600 plus updates, the third night watch at 7 p.m. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote for monthly votes now. Don't tell me I have to use the killer weapon of asking for monthly votes. Chapter 1085. So fast. Not a single one of them was left out. All 27 of them came. Gunyanji's heart trembled violently, like a cello being plucked on its thickest string and playing a soul-stirring piece of music. The corners of her eyes became moist again. They walked in and the door of the central control room slowly closed behind them. Gunyanji bowed deeply to the 27 people and said hoarsely, "You've all suffered. Thank you. Thank you for not telling anyone about the pink piggy." From Zhou Qiyuan, Gunyanji learned that these 27 people had faced torture, but not a single one of them had told anyone about the pink piggy. Even though they all knew who the pink piggy was, the 27 people froze for a moment and quickly said, "Nyenji, don't be like this. We watched you grow up. Do you have to be so polite? We're all family. You're treating us like outsiders. Why would we tell anyone about the pink piggy? Because we're the pink piggy? Who would be stupid enough to betray themselves, right?" Everyone laughed and joked with each other. Hua Xiaoheng walked over with a smile and stood beside Gunyanji. He also said to his soldiers, "Don't be shy. This is what you deserve. Thank you." As he spoke, Hua Xiaoheng also bowed deeply to them. Then he stood with both feet together and gave his subordinates a standard military salute. It was more formal and powerful than Zhou Qiyuan's textbook military salute. The bow at the beginning was Hua Xiaoheng thanking them as Gunyanji's husband. The military salute at the end was a commander thanking his subordinates. Everyone froze for a moment. It was as if something in their hearts suddenly broke through a dam and swept through their bodies like a warm current. After standing in a daze for a while, the leader of the 27 people said loudly again, "All attention. Salute." They saluted Hua Xiaoheng again and expressed their gratitude and excitement with the most sacred military salute. Hua Xiaoheng's gaze swept across the faces of these people. Not bad, 27 people, no one missing. It seemed like he had a good eye for people. The elites he trained did not disappoint him. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and said calmly, "It's good that you're back. I happen to have a mission for you." "Yes, Chief." These 27 people were also very excited. It was a job they loved. But when a Secret Service worker was brought to court by another country with photographs and names, they thought they were going to have to say goodbye to their beloved job. They didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng and General Ji to ignore the accusations of the United States and still trust them. So what if I can't go abroad for the rest of my life? Our country is vast and has abundant resources. The scenery is just right. Just traveling within the country can take a lifetime. What's more, they were computer-obsessed otakus. Just give them a computer and an internet cable and they would have the whole world. As if I wanted to go abroad. "Hua Xiao, we really didn't expect that you and General Ji would still agree to let us come back to work." A staff member was almost in tears. The United States exerted so much pressure on the country. Hua Xiaoheng patted him on the shoulder and smiled. "Think of it this way. We have to oppose whatever the enemy supports. Similarly, when the enemy opposes it, we must support it. So they're accusing you. To us, there's nothing better than this to prove your loyalty and hard work." Gunyanji understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant and said, Yes. Look, South Africa's Nelson Mandela received unanimous praise from the foreign media, right? But what did he do? He turned an orderly developed country into a poor, backward and war-ridden third-rate China. So what's the use of foreigners' praise? Foreigners aren't stupid. If you want to compete with them for global resources, it would be a wonder if they would sincerely praise you. That makes sense. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth curved even wider. That's what I mean. The 27 staff members nodded in relief. The first person immediately rushed to his workstation and kissed the display exaggeratedly. He smiled and said, "Baby, I'm back. Did you miss me?" Everyone laughed and the atmosphere was very lively. Gunyanji also walked over and said with a smile, "What do you want to drink? I'll go to the kitchen over there to make it." They had a simple kitchen here and it was usually a place for everyone to eat and relax. However, Everyone had been locked up in the dormitory for a day and had already eaten and drunk their fill. They all waved their hands at Gunyenji. No need. We're behind a lot of work. We need to catch up immediately. Gunyenji spread her hands and asked very worriedly, you have to at least give me a chance, right? I sincerely want to do something for you. I heard that you were tortured. Are you all right? The people looked at each other and suddenly laughed even louder. They almost slammed the table. One of the staff members winked at Huo Xiaoheng and said, Huo Xiao, we were tortured, so does that count as a public injury? Is there a subsidy? The corners of Huo Xiaoheng's lips curled up. Public injury? Subsidy? Just the Secret Service can cause you public injury? Looks like you don't have enough training. Gunyenji looked at Huo Xiaoheng in shock. What did he mean? Could it be that the so-called torture was something else? The staff member closest to her smiled and waved at her. You'll be doing us a great favor if you quickly help us decipher a few documents. As for torture, what was that? It doesn't exist. No problem. Otherwise, what would I be doing here? Gunyenji made a face at them. She seemed to understand something and her mood instantly improved. When she was in a good mood, her work efficiency increased. In addition, it wasn't just her and Huo Xiaoheng now. There were 27 people involved in the data analysis. After 2 nights and a day of hard work, when dawn broke, the program Huo Xiaoheng wrote finally captured the culprit hidden in the data. Everyone worked for 36 hours in one go and finally found the data hidden by the 4 lines of AI programs before the snap election. Gunyenji made everyone a cup of black coffee and delivered it to everyone from the kitchen. Nyenji, you've also worked for so long. Aren't you tired? A staff member saw that Gunyenji was still in high spirits and couldn't help giving her a thumbs up. As expected of a girl who grew up with the director of our Special Operations Forces. Your body is so good. Gunyenji pursed her lips and smiled. I can still handle it occasionally. You guys do this often, so you have to take care of yourself. We're all very healthy. This is also an urgent mission. Everyone finally found the evidence and were very relaxed. They sat together in 2s and 3s and waited for the election to begin. They would also go to vote. At this time, the Central Control Room's supercomputer would be used to monitor the official voting. They had rushed to find out all the residual effects of the 4 lines of AI program before the election was held. This was also to play a real role in protecting the election this time. The election results this time should be more fair. The focus of the current work was on Yin Shixiang and the others. Huo Xiaoheng and the others were in the Central Control Room to monitor and provide backup support. Gunyenji joked with the staff for a while and returned to Huo Xiaoheng's side. She saw that he was still busy with the computer. Huo Xiao, didn't you find it? Take a break. Yeah, I'm downloading. These supercomputers won't be able to be used later. Huo Xiaoheng really wanted to know what was in the data hidden by the 4 lines of AI program language. Therefore, he couldn't wait for the election to end. He downloaded the hidden data and saved it to his laptop to immediately analyze it. Gunyenji didn't have anything else to do. She watched Huo Xiaoheng run the program for a while before falling asleep on the chair. Huo Xiaoheng carried her to the sofa and covered her with a makeshift blanket on the sofa before going back to work. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the voting stations all over the country opened, and the people could go to vote. There was also a voting station at the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces. The staff all went out to vote, so the central control room was quiet. The sofa was too soft for Gunyenji to sleep on, so she only slept for an hour before waking up. When she woke up, she found that everyone had already returned and were sitting at their respective workstations, concentrating on their work. Huo Xiaoheng still maintained his original posture. He frowned as he looked at the data in a daze. Gunyenji rubbed her eyes and lifted the thin blanket to get up from the sofa. She walked behind Huo Xiaoheng and asked curiously, "What's wrong? You look like you're in a dilemma." Huo Xiaoheng pointed at the screen. "Look, what's going on?" "What's wrong?" Gunyenji leaned forward and saw a road map appear on Huo Xiaoheng's screen. According to the time, the data analyzed first is the most recent period of time. Huo Xiaoheng picked up the mouse and marked the little red dots on the screen. The road map here is based on Hong Kongquan's route of activity that night. That night, Hong Kongquan had clearly gone out and even gone to a gay bar. Later, 2 field agents from the Special Operations Forces lost track of him. In the end, the tracking chip showed that Hong Kongquan hadn't gone out at all that night. It was also at that time that Huo Xiaoheng discovered that there was a problem with their surveillance program. Then, Gunyenji helped them find the 4 lines of intelligent programming language that had been mixed into the surveillance program. Gunyenji looked at the road map carefully and asked curiously, He left from the back door of the bar and then took the subway? Where did he go? Look, from the Sihuan subway station to the apartment complex that he finally arrived at, it was only a 5-minute walk, but he walked for almost half an hour. Hu Xiaoheng used the mouse to draw a line between the subway station and the apartment complex. If I'm not wrong, he was avoiding the surveillance cameras along the way. Gu Nianji stared at the name and location of the apartment that Hong Kongquan had last appeared in. Somehow she felt that it was somewhat familiar. Where had she seen it before? This was the second monthly vote of 6,600 plus 1 update. It was still the third of the night. A reminder for everyone: recommendation votes and monthly votes. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. P.S. Such a sincere chapter, what are you waiting for? Those who can still vote, hurry up and vote. Those who have already voted 5 times, I'll give you a kiss. Chapter 1086. Hu Xiaoheng didn't care about why Hong Kongquan went to the apartment. He only cared about how many of Hong Kongquan's recorded movements were hidden. Gu Nianji returned to her desk and didn't turn on her computer. Because the central control room had been commandeered, they couldn't enter the system to work. Gu Nianji felt bored and took out her phone to play. As soon as she turned it on, Gu Nianji suddenly remembered Weibo. She had seen the name and location of the apartment on Weibo before. Gu Nianji immediately opened Weibo and searched for the name of the apartment. A series of related news came up. The most popular was a case that happened not too long ago. Gu Nianji gasped when she saw the name of the deceased, Liu Daong, and his Weibo account, Churchill's Garden, which had been tagged by the police. This was an old friend of hers. That blogger was actually living in this apartment. Then she looked at the day the blogger jumped off the building and died. It was the same day the data showed that Hong Kongquan went to the apartment. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Thinking about the relationship and collusion between Hong Kongquan and Kai Songyin, as well as the feud between Kai Songyin and the blogger over the short essay, if Gu Nianji hadn't interfered in the middle of it all, Hu Xiaoheng might have been the one who would have been forced to retire from the military due to public opinion. Gu Nianji sensitively deduced that there must be some connection between the two and that it wasn't just a coincidence. She carefully read the news about the blogger's death, including the public information released by the police. It was obvious that after the police investigation, they didn't seem to believe that the blogger committed suicide. However, they didn't have any other evidence, so they released the case to look for clues. Gu Nianji moved closer to Hu Xiaoheng with her phone and whispered, "Hu Xiao, how detailed are the clues shown in the data?" Hu Xiaoheng looked over. "What is it? You found a problem?" Gu Nianji pulled a chair over and sat next to Hu Xiaoheng. She frowned and said, "It's just my guess, so I wanted to ask if you could find more clues." "For example?" Hu Xiaoheng looked at the data analysis on his computer. "There are too many clues. I don't know which one you want to see." Gu Nianji rubbed her temples. "Is that so? Then, can you see when he went to the apartment that night, which floor he went to, and how long he stayed there?" Hu Xiaoheng smiled. "Of course I have all of that. The tracking chip was used to record the daily activities of the Secret Service. Where he went, how long he went, these are all things that should be monitored." Gu Nianji was instantly elated. "Then help me check it out. How many floors did he go to that apartment that night? How long did he go there and when did he leave?" This was not difficult. Since he had already deciphered it, he just needed to delve into it and he would be able to see the specific content. 5 minutes later, Hu Xiaoheng found everything Gu Nianji wanted. Gu Nianji leaned over to watch it with him. So he went to the 15th floor of that apartment. "You can even get a house number? Was it analyzed?" Hu Xiaoheng explained to her. This was based on the position he was standing in and the situation of the apartment on the 15th floor. "Impressive." Gu Nianji gave Hu Xiaoheng a thumbs up. Next, she carefully looked at the clues shown in the hidden data that Hu Xiaoheng had found for her. The more she looked, the more shocked she became. "Hu Xiao, look. He stayed in this room for about 15 minutes. When he left, it was almost the same time that the room was on fire." Gu Nianji finally showed Hu Xiaoheng the case of the blogger on Weibo. "That's right. I suspect that Hong Kongquan has something to do with the blogger's death." Hu Xiaoheng also had a good memory. He only needed to glance at the blogger's name, Churchill's Garden, to remember the cause and effect. "Isn't this the blogger that you taught a lesson to? I remember you saying that he committed suicide." "Yes, I also said that he committed suicide." Gu Nianji took her phone. "I plan to at the police and inform them." "Inform what?" Hu Xiaoheng snatched the phone back. "Don't alert them." "But?" Gu Nianji was confused. "He could be the murderer." Although I don't like that blogger, he doesn't deserve to die. I know. Hua Xiaoheng saw Gu Nianji's pale face as he spoke. He took a chocolate ball from the candy jar on the workbench and stuffed it into Gu Nianji's mouth. But why did you at the police on Weibo? Do you really want Weibo to solve the case? Gu Nianji was speechless. I'll get someone to contact the police station over there and get all the information and surveillance footage they have. Hua Xiaoheng made an internal call as he spoke. The Special Operations Forces had never interfered with domestic affairs, but this time, it was related to the arrest of Hong Kongquan. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng had sufficient reason to negotiate with the police. Of course, when they went to get the information, they didn't say that it was related to Hong Kongquan. They only said that it was related to the recent work of the Special Operations Forces. The police station in charge of that area was a small branch. As soon as they received the call from the higher-ups, they agreed without hesitation. They ordered someone to sort out all the information and videos related to Lu Daiyong's death and sent them over. In less than 2 hours, Gu Nianji received all the information related to the case from the police station. She looked through them one by one very carefully and seriously. Then she looked at the surveillance footage. When a tall man wearing a baseball cap appeared in the surveillance footage, Gu Nianji quickly waved for Hua Xiaoheng to come over and take a look. Hua Xiao, look. Who is this person? Hua Xiaoheng looked carefully for a while before muttering. He doesn't look like Hong Kongquan. But the time he appeared matches the hidden data that you found. Gu Nianji pointed at the time recorded on the surveillance footage. Look, it's almost accurate to the second, okay? Why are you in such a hurry? I only said that he doesn't look like Hong Kongquan. I didn't say that he isn't Hong Kongquan. Hua Xiaoheng patted the back of Gu Nianji's hand. He must have disguised himself. Gu Nianji was speechless. You even know that? Gu Nianji's eyes widened. He knows how to do that? It's not a difficult problem. Those of us in this line of work have all learned about this. Hua Xiaoheng explained to her patiently. Before Hong Kongquan left the army, he was doing what I do now. Although there wasn't an independent Special Operations Forces at that time, it was attached to another department. Gu Nianji was confused again. But if he had disguised himself, how can we prove that the person in the video is Hong Kongquan? It was the third watch. It was still the third watch. A reminder to everyone about the recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1087. Hua Xiaoheng was even more amused. Why do we have to prove that the person in the video is Hong Kongquan? Hong Kongquan should be the one to prove that he isn't the person in the video. Gu Nianji was confused. Is that even possible? Of course, the most important thing right now is to capture Hong Kongquan. Hua Xiaoheng was a bit disappointed. If we don't capture him, everything will be meaningless. Gu Nianji snapped back to reality and remembered that Hong Kongquan had committed more than one crime. She quickly calmed down and said, So, do you have any leads? The entire country is voting today. Hua Xiaoheng quietly opened a program on his laptop. If I'm not wrong, today is his last chance to escape the country. He had already ordered all the counters with international flights to turn on the surveillance cameras installed by the Special Operations Forces. The video of every person leaving the country today would be sent to the central control room, and they would only be allowed to pass after they had confirmed it. Although they had already sent Hong Kongquan's photo, iris scan, and fingerprint data to all the border ports, they were still worried. If Hong Kongquan bribed someone at one of the ports to successfully leave the country, it would be much more difficult to catch him. Gu Nianji was very confident in Hua Xiaoheng. Since he said it would be today, it would be today. Therefore, her attention inevitably turned to the relationship between Hong Kongquan and the Weibo blogger. Hua Xiao say, if the person in the video is the loan shark that the police and the neighbors think is Hong Kongquan, then why did he go there? To kill someone, of course. Hua Xiaoheng had already read through the case of Lu Daiyong's death, including the clues and inferences that the police had not released. I can tell you that this Lu Daiyong was definitely a homicide. It wasn't a suicide. Because the method of killing was what they were used to. The police could not find any evidence at all, but people in their line of work could tell what was going on with one look. If Hua Xiaoheng had done it himself, he would have done it even more cleanly. However, he would not do anything to a commoner like Lu Daiyong. For him to kill someone with his own hands, that person was definitely not a nobody. She thought about Bai Yuxing, who died in the Caribbean Sea, Sean, the former director of the CIA Asia Division, and Colonel ALS, the director of the German Federal Intelligence Agency. Which one of them was a nobody? Gu Nianji was even more curious now. Then why did he want to kill Lu Daiyong? Lu Daiyong's only occupation is the Weibo blogger, Churchill's Garden. and this blogger was originally a writer of new media articles. For me, his only crime is taking money to ruin someone's reputation. But what does this have to do with Hong Kong Quan? There's no connection at all, is there? Hong Kong Quan was the head of the Secret Service, and the Secret Service was also the department in charge of intelligence. Lu Daong, a Weibo blogger, was related to spies? Gu Nianji didn't believe it. She was the only person who had turned Lu Daong's computer hard drive upside down. If Lu Daong really was suspected of being a spy, there was no way Gu Nianji wouldn't have discovered it. In fact, Lu Daong's hard drive was filled with stolen documents and all kinds of short movies from Europe, America, Japan, and Southeast Asia. This kind of person was a spy. That was the worst time a spy had ever been slandered. Gu Nianji couldn't figure it out. She took out a piece of paper and wrote down all the possible connections between Hong Kong Quan and the Weibo blogger, Lu Daong, Churchill's Garden. Then she wrapped the paper in loops. This way she discovered that there was a common connection between the two, and that was Kai Song-yin. In her diagram, Kai Song-yin seemed to be the only intersection between the two. The Weibo blogger Lu Daong, also known as Churchill's Garden, had been instructed by Kai Song-yin to write a short article about Gu Nianji and Huo Xiaoheng. Hong Kong Quan had once suggested to Kai Song-yin to ask Huo Xiaoheng to go to the United States to rescue her daughter, Tan Guirin. At the same time, Gu Nianji guiltily discovered that after she had gotten the truth about Huo Xiaoheng's trip to the United States from Tan Guirin, she had anonymously texted Kai Song-yin to ask her not to sue the Weibo blogger, Lu Daong. She had also sent some of the details of the kidnapping that Tan Guirin had personally dictated to Kai Song-yin. This led Kai Song-yin to believe that the Weibo blogger had information about Tan Guirin's dark history, and that was why he had been so ruthless. Therefore, she had once believed that the death of the Weibo blogger, Churchill's Garden, had something to do with Kai Song-yin. However, that was only her logical deduction. There was no direct evidence. Now, however, the clues indicated that the Weibo blogger's death was personally done by Hong Kong Quan. Therefore, could she infer that it was Kai Song-yin who wanted to kill the Weibo blogger, and then Hong Kong Quan who did it? On the surface, this logical chain seemed to be the case, but it didn't make sense when she thought about it carefully. As the director of the Secret Service, why would Hong Kong Quan listen to Kai Song-yin's orders to kill someone? Also, did Kai Song-yin really want the Weibo blogger dead? If that was the case, then what reason did she use to convince Hong Kong Quan to do it? Or, did she have something on Hong Kong Quan that allowed her to order the director of the Secret Service to kill for her? Gu Nianji thought about this series of questions, but she couldn't make sense of them. There had to be something in the middle that she didn't know. She just didn't know where to start. As Gu Nianji thought about it, she wrote down her thoughts on a piece of paper and showed it to Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiao, take a look. Isn't this the case? Huo Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. He hadn't thought about Kai Song-yin's side yet. If Kai Song-yin was added into the equation, then the logical chain would be perfect. Huo Xiaoheng knew more than Gu Nianji, so he immediately said, there must be other transactions between these two people that we don't know about at the moment. Or Kai Song-yin knows more about Hong Kong-Chuan's situation than we do. Gu Nianji sat back in her seat and shrugged. Doesn't that mean our First Lady didn't report someone suspected of treason to the Prime Minister? Ah, that's interesting. What kind of misunderstanding do you have about their morals? Huo Xiaoheng didn't think much of it. They're all a bunch of people who would sell their souls to the devil just to get elected. Among these candidates, Huo Xiaoheng thought that Bai Jianqing was the most reliable. Although he didn't agree with some of Bai Jianqing's policies, at least he had a bottom line. There were some things that he shouldn't do, and he didn't do anything just to get elected. Bai Jianqing was someone who could afford to lose. He had just gone to vote and voted for Bai Jianqing. Gu Nianji hadn't gone to vote yet because she had fallen asleep. Now that she thought of Kai Song-yin, she felt that she should still go and vote. Although various polls showed that Bai Jianqing's support rate was higher than Tan Dongbang's, who could guarantee that the polls were 100% accurate. If the polls were so useful, then the current president of the United States should be a female president, not a businessman addicted to Twitter. Gu Nianji stood up. Then I'll go and vote. Huo Xiaoheng nodded and let her do as she pleased. Not long after Gu Nianji left the central control room, Huo Xiaoheng's surveillance system connected to the border port began to beep. What happened? Huo Xiaoheng looked up at the surveillance system. The staff in charge of the border port surveillance system looked at the data and suddenly became excited. Hong Kong Quan has appeared. He's at the Sea City International Airport. He's disguised as a middle-aged woman and is about to leave the country. He had revealed himself during the iris scan. Because Hong Kong had already destroyed all the fingerprints on his fingers, the fingerprint scanner wouldn't be able to detect it. As for the iris scan, he couldn't change it unless he dug his own eyes out. Hua Xiaoheng immediately ordered, "Arrest him immediately. We'll depart for Sea City immediately." He wanted to personally escort Hong Kong back to the imperial capital and not give him any chance to escape. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't wait for Gunyanji to return from voting, so he took a few subordinates who often went on missions with him and went directly to the airport. He still took his own military plane. It was fast and flexible, so he didn't have to wait. When Gunyanji returned from voting, she discovered that Hua Xiaoheng had already left. She asked the staff in the central control room, but knowing that they had an urgent mission, she didn't ask any more. This was their daily routine, so she was already used to it. Gunyanji planned to stay there until Hua Xiaoheng returned. What if he needed backup? Now the supercomputers in the central control room were all monitoring the voting behavior of the entire country. Although they had been busy for more than a month, there were still some areas that went wrong. For example, the voting machine suddenly malfunctioned and someone voted for A, but the results showed that they voted for B. There were also areas where people openly cheated, and they were all caught by their surveillance system. The police and members of the Special Operations Forces made their presence known. Even the Secret Service, which was under military control, sent people to carry out the mission, so it could be considered a meritorious service. The entire country was so big and there were so many voting locations. Fortunately, Gunyanji stayed behind and cooperated with the staff there to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations in an orderly manner. Yin Shixiang, who was so busy that he almost sent her a congratulatory message from the Senate building to thank her for her help. At the same time, at the Sea City International Airport, Hong Kong, who was disguised as a middle-aged woman, was taken to a small, dark room in the airport. He was watched by the airport police and waited for the people from the Sea City Special Operations Forces to come and pick him up. The makeup on Hong Kong's face had been washed off, but he was still wearing the floral print dress that middle-aged women often wore. He wasn't tall and was slightly plump, so from the back he did indeed have the body of a middle-aged woman. But from the front he looked unsightly. A few airport police officers looked at him and laughed. They even took pictures of him with their phones. Hong Kong's face turned red and then white. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. However, although he was extremely embarrassed, he didn't give up hope of escaping. He sat in the small dark room for a while with a straight face, then said, "I need to call my lawyer." The police officers looked at each other. "You still need to call a lawyer?" "Of course, I am a citizen of the Wuxia Empire. No matter what crime I committed, I have the right to call a lawyer," Hong Kong said loudly. "If you don't believe me, I can use your phone." This was the first night watch. It was still the third night watch. Today was Monday, so recommendation votes were also very important. The monthly vote was 6,900 plus updates at 1 p.m., and the third night watch was at 7 p.m. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote now. Moi. Chapter 1088. Hong Kong's request made the airport police officers look at each other. They didn't dare to make the decision themselves. If they didn't let him make the call and sue them for police abuse of power in the future, they wouldn't even need to file a case in court. Public opinion alone would be enough to drown them. What future would they have then? But if they let him make the call, what if they found a powerful lawyer to bail Hong Kong out through their connections? It would be hard to explain to the Special Operations Forces. They thought about it and finally decided to ask their leader. They called and the leader immediately agreed. He even said in a bureaucratic tone, "No matter how serious the crime, you can't stop others from hiring a lawyer. This is human rights. Human rights. Do you understand?" Since the leader had agreed, the police officers had no choice but to carry out the order. They took the phone of the airport duty room to the little dark room where Hong Kong was being held and waited at the door. Hong Kong breathed a sigh of relief and quickly dialed the seemingly ridiculous invalid number. He had actually been in contact with this invalid number for the past few days while he was on the run. Originally, he didn't want to use the airport route to escape, but that person told him that the supercomputer in the Special Operations Forces Central Control Room would be used to supervise the election and wouldn't have any spare energy to track his whereabouts. He also guaranteed that all his data had been changed in the Central Control Room's surveillance system. Those people definitely wouldn't be able to find him. Only then did he feel reassured to use the airport route. So when he was stopped at the border control counter and his iris was scanned repeatedly, he knew that he was in trouble. After all the calculations, did he forget to calculate the iris? That shouldn't be possible. That person couldn't have known that the central control room system had all their data, right? Other than fingerprints, there were also iris scans and even DNA. He didn't believe that person would make such a mess. That person's AI language was very advanced. Even in the United States, no one would be able to find out. But he had indeed been caught. What had happened in between? Hong Kong wasn't convinced. He had to contact that person and ask what had happened. Sure enough, when he got the phone, he immediately dialed the number without even caring about the surveillance cameras in the room. Please dial the full phone number. Please dial the full phone number. Please dial the full phone number. Again and again, the voice of the telecommunications company came through the phone, telling him that the number he dialed was incorrect and that he needed to dial again. Sweat poured down Hong Kong's forehead, and his face glistened. He did not believe it, he did not believe it, After calling for 10 minutes, the person in charge of the video surveillance couldn't take it anymore. He pushed the door open and said, "Mr. Hong, why are you calling? The phone number is 7 or 8 digits. What number did you dial? 4 or 5 digits. Should I call the intercom?" Hong Kong plopped down on the chair. His calm and collected demeanor from before had completely disappeared. He trembled as he held onto the phone and stammered, I'll call again, call again." He did it again in front of these people regardless of the consequences. It was the same response. "Please dial the full number." Her gentle and standard voice did not ease Hong Kong's nervousness. Instead, it was like a bomb had exploded in his mind. It's over, it's over. That man had given up on him. He had always relied on that man's omnipotent infiltration ability. He had always been able to pull him out of trouble when he was in the most dangerous situation. But this time, it was the most dangerous and difficult moment of his life. How could he not show up? Hong Kong's hands trembled as he gritted his teeth. If he waited another 5 minutes and the call still did not go through, he would have no choice but to look for the Americans. He had never thought of committing treason. It was all because of these people. Hong Kong held onto the phone in the little dark room and dialed for another 5 minutes. After confirming that the phone number really did not go through, he dialed another number. "Is this Lil Tang? This is Hong Kong. I need a lawyer. I need your help." The person on the other end of the line was stunned for a moment and quickly said, "I'm sorry. You called the wrong number." "I didn't." Hong Kong yelled before the person hung up. "If you don't help me find a lawyer, I'll break up with you. I'm already down on my luck. Don't even think about it." The person on the other end of the line seemed to be frightened by him and quickly comforted him. Don't worry. Let me see if there's a lawyer's number." 5 minutes after the phone call, a man in a suit carrying a briefcase and wearing gold-rimmed glasses appeared at the door of the little dark room where Hong Kong was being held. He calmly said to the airport police at the door, "I am the lawyer that Mr. Hong hired just now. I would like to talk to him." As he spoke, he handed over his business card. The airport police at the door saw that it was a lawyer from the largest law firm in Sea City and quickly opened the door to let him in. He even considerately closed the door. Although they were not allowed to listen in when the lawyer was meeting with the client according to the rules, they didn't mind too much since there was video surveillance in the room. However, after the lawyer-like person entered the room, he took out an appliance about the size of an iPad and placed it on the table in front of Hong Kong. At the same time, he raised his hand to stop Hong Kong from speaking. Hong Kong immediately shut his mouth when he saw the thing. 30 seconds later, the appliance emitted a faint blue light. The video surveillance in the room was fixed and stopped on the image of the lawyer entering the room. It took a while for the people in charge of the surveillance to realize that there was something wrong with the video. Just 5 minutes after they realized that there was something wrong with the surveillance, the lawyer-like person spoke. "I have already temporarily turned off the video surveillance in this room. We only have 5 minutes. Long story short, Minister Hong Kong, we Japanese admire people like you very much. If you cooperate with us, we can guarantee that we can rescue you and send you to Japan. You can live the rest of your life in Tokyo or Kyoto." The man spoke in Mandarin with a Japanese accent. After he finished speaking, he looked at Hong Kong's expression and continued, "Or Hokkaido. We have many beautiful places in Hokkaido." Hong Kong felt like he had been punched in the face. His facial features were all scrunched together. He had never expected that the person he had called would be a Japanese person, even though he had clearly called a secret number of the American Central Intelligence Agency in the Wuxia Empire. What should he do? Should he rely on the Japanese? If he were to cooperate with the Americans, Hong Kong could still confidently feel that he had been forced to do so. However, if he were to follow the Japanese and save his own life, Hong Kong would not be able to overcome that psychological barrier. He did want to fight for power, but he had never thought of betraying the interests of his country. He knew that the invalid number that had been contacting him previously was not an American. Although that person was very familiar with the Americans, he really had nothing to do with the United States. Of course, he was also very sure that that person was definitely not Japanese. That was because that person had never paid any attention to Japan and had never allowed him to have any interest in Japan. He had always thought that that person was also from the Wuxia Empire. Otherwise, he would not have cooperated with him for so long. However, this time, when he called the American number, it was a Japanese person who came, which made him a little curious. Hong Kong hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "How did you know this number?" You clearly called the number of the American Central Intelligence Agency, but you don't know why I am here, right, Minister Hong?" The man pushed his gold-rimmed glasses up his nose, and there was a hint of pride on his fair and refined face. "You don't need to know how I know. Anyway, we know. We might be interested in what you have, so here I am." Hong Kong's pupils suddenly shrank. Of course, he had brought some confidential information with him when he escaped this time. Otherwise, how could he contact other countries? How could he get someone to save him? He just didn't expect the Americans to already know what he was holding. As he thought about this, Hong Kong felt a chill down his spine. Only the owner of the invalid number knew what confidential information he had brought with him when he escaped this time. Now that the Japanese actually knew, could that person be Japanese? Could it be that he was wrong? But that person's technology was many times more advanced than the Wuxia Empire's technology. If he was Japanese, why didn't he just give it to Japan? Impossible. Hong Kong immediately rejected this idea. The lawyer-like person saw that he was still not speaking, so he looked at his watch. "There's only 1 minute left, Minister Hong. If you don't speak now, our deal will end here. As soon as their surveillance is restored, I will leave here." As he spoke, he reminded him again, "According to our intelligence, your Special Operations Forces has almost turned out in full force to capture you this time. If you want to escape, please hurry. If you hesitate any longer, I don't think even the elites of the American Central Intelligence Agency will be able to save you, let alone us." As soon as he said this, Hong Kong no longer hesitated. He immediately said, "The first phase of the quantum communication satellite technology, the condition is that you bring me out of here safely. When we get to Japan, I will give you the second phase of the technology." The lawyer-like person's eyes flashed. "You really have the first and second phase of the quantum communication satellite technology?" He was surprised and delighted. This was a technical bottleneck that the Japanese researchers had spent a lot of effort to break through. This was the second update, and the monthly votes had been delivered at 6,900 plus updates. It was still the third update. Today was Monday, and the recommendation votes were also very important. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the third update. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote for the monthly votes now. P.S. The introduction of the book has changed again. Dear friends, what do you think of this version? Moi. Chapter 1089. Hong Kong had just nodded when someone pushed the door open and looked at them. "Time's up. If you want to be released on bail, you have to wait until the court files the case." Hong Kong and the Japanese man who looked like a lawyer were both stunned. They didn't expect the airport police department to react so quickly. If they had used this excuse just now, the Japanese wouldn't have been able to get in. Of course, if they couldn't get in like that, they would think of another way. With the level of Japanese infiltration in the Wuxia Empire, it was more than enough for them to enter the small dark room in the airport to see a suspect. The man who looked like a lawyer saw Hong Kong nod and immediately nodded back. He said in English, "Okay, I will be your lawyer and defend you." The airport police officer who came in couldn't help but look at the man. Why was this lawyer speaking in English? He didn't look any different from them. Hong Kong said nervously, "I hope to be released on bail immediately." He couldn't fall into the hands of the special forces. He knew that if he fell into their hands this time he would definitely die. The man who looked like a lawyer gestured to him not to worry, then took out his phone and called a department in C City. A minute later, a call from a department leader in C City called the C City International Airport, ordering them to release Hong Kong immediately and saying that the lawyer was a famous lawyer. With his guarantee, Hong Kong wouldn't run away. The airport police officer was in a difficult position. He had received orders to guard Hong Kong until the special forces came to take him away. He couldn't help but say, "Shouldn't you communicate with the special forces? They said it first. The leader on the other end of the phone was furious. What? What's so great about the special forces? It's one thing for them to be lawless abroad, but now they want to be tyrants in the Wuxia Empire. What a miscalculation. Release him. Release him immediately. He's on bail with a lawyer's guarantee. Do you know anything about the law? The airport police officer hesitated. He had seen the arrest warrant and was holding it in his hand, but he was unwilling to let Hong Kong go after a call from the leader. How about this, you write a note and I'll ask them to wait for a few minutes. Also, I've already informed the special forces in Sea City. They'll be here soon. When the time comes, show your note to the people from the Special Operations Forces, and they'll let him go if they say so. The airport police didn't want to take responsibility either. The people from the Special Operations Forces branch in Sea City were about to arrive. Once Hong Kong was handed over to them, they could do whatever they wanted. The leader of a certain department on the other side of the phone flew into a rage. He knocked on the table and said, "Who are you? What's your name? I want to look for your airport leader. I'm going to strip you of your position." The airport police officer was very quick-witted. When he heard that the leader didn't know who he was, he quickly said, "All right, I'll hang up first. I'm busy here." He wasn't going to say his name. If such a leader made things difficult for him, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. As soon as he put down the phone, the lawyer-like person suddenly took out a pen, pressed it against the airport police officer's waist and fired a shot. The special pistol with a silencer made a soft sound, and the airport police officer instantly lost consciousness. Then, the lawyer-like Japanese man once again used the device that emitted blue light to create electromagnetic interference, affecting the surveillance video. At the same time, he said to Hong Kong, "Hurry up and change clothes with him." Hong Kong understood, took off his floral dress, and swapped it with the airport police officer. The airport police officer's body size was about the same as Hong Kong's. They were both slightly chubby, so after changing clothes, if one didn't look at them from the front, one wouldn't be able to tell at all. Hong Kong placed the unconscious airport police officer in his position and made him lie on the table. The lawyer-like person walked over, held the pen-style pistol, and once again pressed it against the police officer's heart and fired another shot, killing the police officer. Hong Kong was stunned. "Why did you kill him? Couldn't you have just knocked him out?" "He can't live to see me." The lawyer-like person put away the pen. "There's no time. We'll go out immediately." As he spoke, he hurriedly walked out of the door. Hong Kong was wearing the airport police officer's uniform and a large police cap that was pressed against his forehead. He lowered his head and followed behind the lawyer-like person. The other two police officers at the door glanced at them. The lawyer-like Japanese man turned around and said to them, "Please don't disturb my client. I'll go back and consult my boss to see how we should proceed with this case." The two police officers glanced into the room and saw the slightly chubby middle-aged man in the ridiculous floral dress lying on the table. He seemed to be very upset, so they closed the door of the little dark room. The lawyer-like Japanese man walked out of the airport, and Hong Kong, disguised as a police officer, followed behind him. As soon as he got into the car, he heard the airport alarm blaring. "Oh no, they found out." Hong Kong was nervous and fidgeted in the back seat. "It's okay. You're already in our car. They won't be able to catch up." The lawyer-like person stepped on the accelerator as soon as he finished speaking and sped all the way to the Japanese Consulate General in Sea City with Hong Kong. "Huo. Oh no." Hong Kong got away. Huo was still on the plane when he received a call from the Sea City Special Operations Forces. "What happened?" Huo asked calmly. He didn't seem surprised at all. He knew that this trip wouldn't be so smooth. If Hong Kong didn't have a few tricks up his sleeve, how could he have gotten to where he was now? The man recounted what had happened at the airport. He was already locked up in the little dark room, but Hong Kong said he wanted to find a lawyer, so he made a phone call. In the end, a fake lawyer came, killed an airport police officer and took Hong Kong away. The corners of Huo eyes twitched imperceptibly. "Make a phone call? You still want him to make a phone call at a time like this? Didn't you tell the airport? He's the most wanted criminal." "I did." The man's voice became softer. "But that fake lawyer found a department leader. Not only did that person let him make a phone call, but he also ordered him to be released on bail pending trial." Huo clenched his fists. "Which department leader? Take him away immediately for investigation." Huo had Speaker Long and General Ji's authorization. The Special Operations Forces was fully in charge of all cases related to Hong Kong. Since that department leader dared to openly oppose the arrest warrant, he had to bear the consequences. Collaborating with the enemy was the lightest crime. As for treason, it would depend on whether Hong Kongquan could be successfully arrested. Huo Xiaoheng turned on the pilot's intercom and asked, "Can you go faster?" The pilot hurriedly contacted the ground station and sped up. By the time they arrived at the Sea City International Airport, they were 30 minutes faster than before. But they couldn't take Hong Kongquan away in time. Huo Xiaoheng put on his sunglasses and got off the plane. He hurried to the airport to look at the surveillance footage. At that moment he received a call from General Ji. The news that Hong Kongquan had escaped from the airport surveillance had also been reported to General Ji. Huo Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks. "Chief." General Ji was obviously furious over the phone. He said word by word, "Xiaoheng, capture Hong Kongquan. You must capture him alive." He took away the first and second phases of the quantum communication satellite technology. This is an urgent message from the aviation department. They needed to capture him alive because they didn't know who he had spread the technology to and how much he had spread it. Therefore, they had to capture Hong Kongquan alive to ensure that the technology was under control. If he died just like that, it could have an unimaginable impact. But under these circumstances, capturing him alive was much more difficult than killing him. When Hong Kongquan escaped, he had already removed the tracking chip from his body. Therefore, they had no way of tracking him and could only set up a trap all over the country. In other words, there would always be people who would help Hong Kongquan escape at the expense of the nation's interests for the sake of some trivial personal gain. Huo Xiaoheng had predicted this, so he decided to take action personally. He wanted to intimidate those who wanted to plead on Hong Kongquan's behalf or even clear his name. He hurried to the airport surveillance room and looked at the surveillance footage. The strange thing was that the fake lawyer who appeared in the surveillance footage had never had a direct shot of his face. This person was obviously very experienced in how to avoid having his face captured by the surveillance cameras. This was a colleague of theirs. Huo Xiaoheng silently concluded in his heart. It was the third watch. It was still the third watch. Today was Monday. Recommendation votes were also very important. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote now. Moi. Chapter 1090. When did you realize that they had escaped? Huo Xiaoheng calmly turned around and looked sharply at the staff of the Sea City branch of the Special Operations Forces. Didn't I tell you to come to the airport immediately to take over? The staff members lowered their heads in shame and said, "We rushed to the airport as soon as we received your order, but someone rear-ended our car on the way and was stopped for a while. They were only 10 minutes behind their estimated time." Huo Xiaoheng slammed his fist on the table and laughed coldly. "That's impressive. They set up a trap for us as well." He looked at the staff members and said expressionlessly, "Didn't you anticipate that someone would stop you at that time? After everything here is over, go back and report the situation to your superiors. You can deal with it however you want." The staff members quickly nodded, but their faces were full of anger. One of the staff members boldly said, "Chief, please allow us to redeem ourselves." "Yes. Hong Kongquan escaped from our hands. We want to capture him ourselves." "Agreed. We want to capture him ourselves." The crowd was very angry and it seemed like they were going to win. Huo Xiaoheng nodded slightly, and a look of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. "Good. If you can redeem yourselves, I will explain the situation to your superiors." It didn't matter if there was a problem. What was important was that they had the ability to adapt to the situation and solve the problem. This was the principle that Huo Xiaoheng had always trained these people. Their missions couldn't be smooth sailing, and there would always be unexpected situations. The difference between them and ordinary soldiers was their ability to deal with unexpected situations. "Thank you, Chief." The staff members were excited and saluted Huo Xiaoheng together. Huo Xiaoheng waved his hand. "All right, enough nonsense. When did the airport find out that Hong Kongquan had escaped?" The leading staff member stepped forward and showed Huo Xiaoheng the surveillance video recorded at the airport. "It was about 5 minutes before we arrived. They discovered that Hong Kongquan, who was wearing a dress, had been lying motionlessly on the table in the small dark room. They went in and pushed him only to discover that he was already dead. Then they realized that this person wasn't Hong Kongquan at all, but one of their airport police officers." Huo Xiaoheng crossed his arms and stared sharply at the surveillance video at the entrance of the airport. He suddenly pointed at a car and said, "Stop. Zoom in on this car." The staff operated the computer and zoomed in on the video frame by frame. The car looked like a very ordinary black Passat. Unfortunately, the window glass seemed to be a very dark brown color, and it was also coated with a special coating. Even if he zoomed in, he couldn't see the people inside. However, since he had found the car, it would be much easier to find the surveillance camera. Soon they found the tall, skinny man who looked like a lawyer at the gate in front of the airport and got into the car, although they could only see his back. Behind them was a slightly chubby man in an airport police uniform who followed them into the back seat. The slightly plump man in the airport police uniform had to be Hong Kongquan. The two of them were about the same size, so it was easy to replace him. Hong Kongquan and the fake lawyer had killed the airport police officer, changed clothes with him, and escaped the airport in the chaos. According to the license plate number, this car is wanted throughout the country. Hua Xiaoheng calmly ordered, informed the backup personnel in the department to turn on the surveillance cameras along the road. Search immediately to see where this car is going. As Hua Xiaoheng spoke, he walked out of the door. He took the people he had brought from the headquarters to get into 2 bulletproof SUVs and drove out of the airport. The staff of the C-City Special Operations Forces branch took their own cars back to the branch to be on standby. Before they even got on the highway, the technical staff of the Special Operations Forces sent a message. "Chief, we found this car." The other side sent Hua Xiaoheng a screenshot of the surveillance cameras along the road. Hua Xiaoheng frowned as he looked at the route. Where is it going? It didn't look right. It seemed to be heading towards the embassy area. The other side quickly confirmed Hua Xiaoheng's guess. "Chief, if we are not mistaken, this car is heading towards the embassy area. To be precise, it is heading towards the Japanese Consulate General in C-City." It seemed that this time the Japanese spies had made their move. Hua Xiaoheng's face flashed with a hint of coldness and toughness. The shortest distance from the C-City International Airport to the Japanese Consulate General in C-City was 51.9 kilometers by car. If they took the Huaxia Highway and the Central Ring Road, it would take at least 57 minutes. Because the Japanese Consulate General in C-City was located in a relatively prosperous city, it was not easy for them to drive fast. They had been traveling for about half an hour now. In other words, they were ahead by half an hour. Hua Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes and gave a final order. "I don't care what you do. Don't let them take one step closer to the embassy area." They wanted to hide in the Japanese Consulate General and enjoy diplomatic immunity. Stop daydreaming. As soon as Hua Xiaoheng gave the final order, the Special Operations Forces team was mobilized. After years of cruel training and missions abroad, the elites of the Special Operations Forces were more ruthless and decisive than the special forces in the country. Within 5 minutes, the consulates of Japan, the United States, Australia, and India in C-City suddenly exploded at the same time. Thick smoke quickly rose into the air. There seemed to be a crackling sound similar to firecrackers, but some passers-by said it was gunfire. With such a major incident happening in the consulates of the foreign countries in the Huaxia Empire, the United States of America, Australia, and India, they had to express their special concern. Therefore, countless police cars were mobilized and parked outside all the consulates in C-City. Not even a mouse could escape. At the same time, they set up heavy roadblocks and sufficient manpower to strictly interrogate every vehicle that wanted to enter the embassy area. Everyone got out of the car to be searched, fingerprinted, and even hair and blood samples were taken for DNA archiving. Due to the negative impact of this incident and the fact that it was during the interim election voting period, the head of the Huaxia Empire, Speaker Long, and General Ji immediately called for an emergency meeting. In order to protect the safety of the diplomats of the various countries, they hoped that they would stay put and cooperate with the Huaxia Empire's police to help them investigate the criminals who were trying to take advantage of the situation. Speaker Long even went on television to severely condemn the criminal attempt to use the embassies to destroy the diplomatic relations between the two countries. He demanded that the Huaxia Empire arrest all the criminals who were targeting the embassies at all costs. He also reiterated that the Huaxia Empire had always been a peace-loving and civilized country that was kind to its neighbors since ancient times. But we will never allow our neighbors to use our goodwill to subvert the normal diplomatic relations between our two countries. The people of the Huaxia Empire do not cause trouble, but they are never afraid of trouble either. Speaker Long's statement baffled all the reporters present. A CNN reporter cautiously asked, "Mr. Speaker Long, the information we received was that someone was targeting the consulates of Japan, the United States, Australia, and India. No one was targeting the Huaxia Empire." Speaker Long looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot and said contemptuously, "Targeting the consulates of other countries in our country is the same as targeting the Huaxia Empire. May I ask what misunderstanding you have?" Do you really think that we can shamelessly declare neutrality when the United States and Japan are fighting on our soil? This sentence was unusually harsh, and it made the CNN reporter sweat profusely. He stammered and squeezed his way outside to send a press release to the American media. On social media, the sudden incident at the Sea City Embassy area was also flooding the screen. Under the deliberate guidance of the Special Operations Forces Publicity Department, the public unknowingly followed the established pattern of the Special Operations Forces. They crazily criticized the local government for failing to protect the consulate general, which frightened the noble foreign officials, lords of foreign countries high. Since there was a wave of criticism on social media about the Sea City Police's incompetence, the chief superintendent of the Sea City Police immediately came out to apologize and said that the police force was insufficient. In order to provide the greatest security for the foreign embassies, they requested the local garrison for backup. Therefore, within 10 minutes, dozens of military vehicles responded to the public's request and drove to the embassy area, truly surrounding it. At this time, even a fly would not be able to fly into the embassy area, let alone a mouse. Hong Kong and the fake lawyer sat in the Passat with pale faces and stared blankly at the rumbling military vehicles not far away. After they left the airport, they purposely took a detour on Central Road. They did not expect to shake off their pursuers, but delayed the opportunity in front. Now they could not even touch the borders of the embassy area, let alone enter the Japanese consulate in Sea City. The fake lawyer was in the front seat contacting the Japanese consulate. "Nakahara-kun, can you send someone to take us in?" "Ito-kun, the situation here is also very bad. After discussing with the ambassador, we have unanimously decided that you should not come in." The Japanese consulate general in Sea City hid nervously in the basement and used a secret device to communicate with the fake lawyer. "Then what should we do?" The fake lawyer flew into a rage. "The thing in my hands is more important than the entire Japanese consulate. You are going to let something happen to us. You should commit seppuku." This was the first watch. It was still the third watch. A reminder to everyone about the recommendation votes and monthly votes. The monthly votes were 7,200 plus updates at 1 p.m., and the third watch at 7 p.m. P.S. It's already the end of the month. You can vote for your monthly votes now. Mwah. Chapter 1091. The Japanese Consul General in Sea City was stunned. Was it really okay to speak to him, the Consul General, in such a tone? If Ito-kun's brain was not damaged, then the thing in his hands was really important. More important than the entire Japanese Consulate General in Sea City. What kind of incredible thing was it? Hihara-kun's eyes were glowing green. He suddenly said a bunch of katakana and hiragana words that sounded meaningless to outsiders. It was like a Chinese speaker suddenly reciting the pinyin they learned in elementary school. But the fake lawyer Ito-kun knew immediately that Hihara-kun was talking to him in code. He nodded and replied to him in the same code. "Yes, he's very important. He's so important that everyone in Sea City can be sacrificed, but he can't die. He has the first and second phases of the quantum communication satellite technology that Wuxia has just developed." The Japanese Consul General, Hihara-kun, was stunned for a second. Then, slowly, his breathing became heavy, like a pervert who had seen a beautiful woman. He could not even breathe. You. Are you serious? Don't be fooled, right? Wuxia people are very cunning. Beware of trickery. Although he said to beware of trickery, in fact, Hihara-kun completely believed Ito-kun's words. He said trickery just out of habit. The fake lawyer Ito-kun said arrogantly, "Of course I know how to tell if it's real or not. Just now, he has already sent me part of the content of the first phase of the technology. I have already forwarded it to the Tokyo Secret Service. They are verifying whether it is real or not. Once it is confirmed to be real, they will immediately use the power that they have been hiding in Wuxia for many years to send him to Japan." Good. The Japanese Consul General, Hihara-kun, said the word "good" 3 times in a row. His flat, fat face glistened. "For the glory of the Japanese Empire. Even if we die in Wuxia, we must send the thing to Japan. For the Japanese Empire." Ito-kun was also excited. "Then hurry up and think of a way." "Think of what way?" The Japanese Consul General gritted his teeth. "Looking at Wuxia's attitude, they know that you are coming to the consulate. So do not come in. If you come in, you will be caught by them." The fake lawyer's heart sank. Makes sense. He had been in a hurry to enter the consulate because, according to diplomatic conventions, the Japanese consulate was equivalent to Japanese territory. No matter how powerful the Wuxia Imperial Police were, they couldn't enter the consulate to arrest people. So, looking at the military vehicles, police cars and fully armed military and police personnel outside, it turned out that they were all here for the person beside him. Thinking about it this way, Ito-kun already believed Hong Kongquan's words. If he didn't have the real deal in his hands, how could the Wuxia Empire have made such a big fuss to arrest him? But now there were wolves in front and tigers behind. How were they going to escape? Ito-kun was pondering when his phone rang again. He swiped it open and saw that it was a coded text message from the Tokyo Secret Service. Rising Sun Punglai, the item has been received. It has been confirmed to be real. Orders have been given to use all resources to escort it back to the country. Then he sent him a few addresses. Ito-kun was overjoyed. Although he had figured it out just now and knew that the thing in Hong Kongquan's hands was real, it was still safer to get confirmation from the Secret Service. He scrolled down his phone and finished reading the overall plan that had been sent to him. He turned around and glanced at the uneasy Hong Kongquan. He thought to himself, for this clown, the Empire of Japan has really turned out in full force this time. They had been planning in the Wuxia Empire for so many years and had left so many elite spies just for this day. Ito-kun had a very good memory and had a photographic memory. He only took one look and remembered the entire plan in his heart. He said to Hong Kongquan, "Are you ready? Let's go to Japan now." Hong Kongquan was stunned. "Now? Oh, don't tell me we're taking a plane. We can't go to the airport. They must be waiting for us at the airport." Ito-kun smiled contemptuously. "Who said we're going to the airport? From here to Japan we can also go by sea." Sea City was located at the mouth of the sea. East of the sea was Japan. Although the sea was a bit far, as long as they were 12 nautical miles out of the territorial waters, the Wuxia Empire could theoretically not control them. Although according to the International Maritime Convention, there was an exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles beyond 12 nautical miles, beyond which was the high seas. In other words, they had to reach the high seas 212 nautical miles away from the coastline of the Wuxia Empire. The straight line distance from Sea City to Nagasaki, which was the closest to Japan, was 460 nautical miles. In other words, they had to walk nearly half the distance to reach the high seas in the theoretical sense. But with Japan's ample preparation this time, Ito-kun believed that this distance was not a problem at all. No matter how far the Wuxia Empire wanted to chase them, it would have to depend on whether the Japanese Navy agreed or not. Just now, the Tokyo Secret Service had already told him everything. All the spies in Sea City of the Wuxia Empire would be mobilized to ensure that they boarded the ship smoothly. Once they were 212 nautical miles away, the Japanese Empire's warships would pick them up. Ito-kun felt like he was instantly rejuvenated. He quickly opened the door and got out of the car, disappearing into the crowd with Hong Kongquan, who had changed into a tourist costume. By the time the Special Operations Forces found the car, an hour had passed. "Sir, we found the suspect's car, but there is no one inside. The preliminary estimate is that the car has been abandoned for about an hour." Xiaoheng received the report and sat in his private car. He looked coldly in the direction of the embassy area and said, "Continue to surround the embassy area. We cannot relax until we find Hong Kongquan." "Yes, sir." But now that the embassy area was under military control, Hong Kongquan would not be able to fly, and even if they had wings. Was that why they abandoned the car and fled? Where would they flee to? The roads from Sea City to the surrounding cities had been blocked. In theory, it was impossible for them to escape the city. But there were 24 million people in Sea City. If they hid in the crowd, where would they be able to find them? Xiaoheng thought about it quietly for a while and looked in the direction of the beach in Sea City. He picked up his phone and called General G. "Chief, I need your help." General G was also anxiously waiting for his news in the office. He immediately said, "Tell me, what help do you need? Just tell me." "I request for a special arrest warrant. I want the Sea City TV stations and major media to broadcast it 24 hours a day." Xiaoheng paused. "Also, I request for the Navy's support." Just as the Sea City TV station and all the major media outlets began broadcasting Hong Kongquan's front photo and the fake lawyers back 24 hours a day, in the German embassy in the imperial capital, an old man with rosy skin stood in Reinitz's room. He held a cane in one hand and a pipe in his mouth as he looked at Hong Kongquan's photo on the television with a smile on his face. He praised, "This photo is very good, isn't it, Reinitz?" Reinitz smiled and held a cigarette in his hand. He leaned against the windowsill and stretched his long legs. He said calmly, Mr. Li Dishi, we sold Hong Kong Quan to the Japanese just like that? Yes. Li Dishi nodded and found a seat to sit down facing the TV. He took a puff of his pipe and said, "We are not interested in what he has, and the United States is even less interested. But Japan will definitely be interested. You also know that Hong Kong Quan is useless now. It's not worth it to save him. It's better to use him as bait to catch a bigger fish." This was the second monthly ticket, which had been delivered at 7,200 minutes. It was still the third night. A reminder for everyone: recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. 7 o'clock in the evening. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote for your monthly tickets now. Moi. Chapter 1092. Reinitz was silent for a moment, then said, "Where did you get this information? How did you know that Hong Kong Quan betrayed his country?" "The Americans told me, of course. Son, don't forget that I have another identity." Li Dishi winked at him. "You have one too," Reinitz said. "But where did the Americans get this information from? Do they really have that much advanced technology?" "The Americans have their mysterious ally." Li Dishi sighed. "Otherwise, why would I cooperate with them?" Not only did he cooperate, but he also joined the CIA. Reinitz thought sarcastically and shrugged. "So the Americans still haven't revealed their source?" "No. But I believe them. If the Americans hadn't informed me to cooperate, why would I have asked you to tip Huo? Li Dishi smiled very kindly and kindly. "You know, how many deals did he ruin with the United States? With him around, we were never able to get rid of Gunyanji. So, using the already useless Hong Kong Quan in exchange for the most powerful Huo in the Wuxia Empire, whether it's us or the United States, it's a great deal." Reinitz sighed softly in his heart. He lowered his head to take a puff of his cigarette and slowly exhaled a faint ring of smoke. His blonde hair and blue eyes appeared particularly hazy and moving in the white smoke that curled up. "Son, don't think too much about it. As soon as Huo dies, such a perfect girl like Gunyanji will be yours. You will marry her, have children, and be together for the rest of your life." Li Dishi's eyes flashed when he said the word, "have children." Reinitz kept his head down from beginning to end, so he didn't see the strange look in Li Dishi's eyes. "But I still feel that this method is too insulting to Huo." Reinitz shook his head disapprovingly. "No matter how many deals he has ruined with us, he is a true hero. The International Special Forces Association still has a record that no one has been able to break. He is the proudest disciple of the founder of Israel's Mossad. I want to defeat Huo personally. Not only do I want to take away his career, but I also want to take away his woman. Even if I have to resort to all kinds of crafty plots, I will not hesitate. But I feel that using the Japanese will dirty my hands." As he spoke, he threw the cigarette in his hand into the trash can under the window. "For the past few days I've been feeling sticky on my hands. That's probably the reason. Although Germany and Japan were allies during the World War, the Germans had always looked down on this Eastern ally. Reinitz knew more about the history of that war, so he despised the Japanese even more. Son, don't think too much. In our line of work, as long as we can win, we don't care about using any means." Li Dishi shook his head regretfully. "If you insist on using tricks, you will never be Huo opponent." Reinitz did not comment, but he did not continue to argue with Li Dishi. From morning to afternoon, Ito took Hong Kong Quan to 7 different strongholds in Sea City within 5 hours. All of them were Japanese spies who had been lurking in the Wuxia Empire for many years. However, thanks to the continuous broadcasting of the Sea City TV station and the media, there were eyes watching them from all directions. "The police station? My neighbor had 2 guests today, and they looked like the wanted criminals on TV. Hurry up and arrest them." "The police station?" 2 men came to our convenience store, and I could tell at a glance that they were the 2 wanted criminals on TV. I even took a picture of the fake lawyer. "The police station? I saw the 2 men you were looking for. They look exactly like the photos on TV. Hurry up and arrest them. My address coordinates are." After mobilizing the people, Hong Kong Quan and Ito once again realized what the vast ocean of people's war meant. They had originally thought that no matter how powerful the Special Operations Forces were, they would not be able to find them if they were hidden among the 24 million ordinary people in Sea City. Even if they were to investigate 24 million people one by one, how many years would it take to investigate them? However, they did not expect Huo to have the courage to announce the whole thing to the media. Although he did not say what exactly Hong Kong Quan had done, His identity as the head of the Secret Service was enough to make the smart Wuxia Empire citizens imagine a drama of colluding with foreign countries. Under such circumstances, the entire Sea City was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes were wide open. They could not let this traitor escape the country. Because of the reports from the public, the Japanese spies that had been hidden in Sea City for many years were exposed one by one. From a small convenience store clerk to an important department leader, the scope of the spies was truly amazing. Wuxiaoheng and the others did not comment on this. The people they arrested were all handed over to the Secret Service to handle, because the Special Operations Forces did not interfere with domestic affairs. However, the leader of the Secret Service was their target, so it could be said that the staff of the Secret Service were in a rather awkward position this time. However, as awkward as it was awkward, they still had to do what needed to be done. The Secret Service was now under the control of the military, so the Supreme Military Council would directly send someone to take over. Wuxiaoheng was still very reassured. "Ito-kun, what's wrong with you guys?" The Japanese consul general in Sea City was on the verge of crying over the phone. "Our elite Japanese have been exposed one by you guys. Can't you be more careful?" Ito was also filled with anger. He did not know that the Wuxia Empire people were so willing to be nosy. They really had nothing better to do. What did a neighbor's guest have to do with you? What did buying things at the convenience store have to do with you? And the Sea City TV station had been rolling their photos. It was so infuriating. Oh yes, because of the public's vigilance, Ito's front photo had already been taken and sent to the police station. After verification, the TV station had changed the rolling photos that only showed his back. Both his and Hong Kongquan's faces could be considered moderately popular internet celebrities. "Hihira-kun, quickly think of a way. We are already close to the beach and there are many spies around here. We can't talk anymore." Ito hung up the phone. He was wearing a pair of large sunglasses and a small mustache under his nose. He was wearing a padded shirt, so no matter from the front or the back, it was impossible to tell that he was the person on the TV. Hong Kongquan had also changed his clothes, but it was still a little unsafe for the two of them to appear at the same time. Therefore, they were now acting separately and using the phone to keep a certain distance. Their phones were also exclusive satellite phones provided by the Tokyo Secret Service. They did not even use the communication lines provided by the Wuxia Empire's mobile operators to ensure that their phones would not be intercepted. "Wait another 2 hours. When it gets dark, we will change into diving suits and swim 12 nautical miles forward. There will be a speedboat there." Ito looked at the coastline in the distance, full of hope. In fact, it was not only the speedboat that would be picking them up, but also the elite members of Japan's SAT Special Response Force. This time, they had sent 200 SAT Special Response Force members, which meant that most of the SAT members had come to pick them up this time. It was said that 200 Japanese SAT Special Response Force members could fight against a regiment of the Wuxia Empire's forces. "For you, the Japanese Empire has put in a lot of effort." Ito reminded Hong Kongquan over the phone. "So you better not play tricks. We can save you, but we can also kill you if you lie to us. Mr. Ito, please rest assured that as long as I arrive safely in Japan, I will definitely transfer the entire first phase of technology to you. But if you play tricks along the way, my friend will not send you the technology. He will ask to see a video of my safe arrival before he will contact you." Hong Kongquan was also very cunning. Everything was actually in his hands, but he lied that it was in the hands of his friend. He was afraid that the Japanese would burn the bridge after crossing it and kill him as soon as they got it. Although he and Ito were on the run together, they didn't trust each other. They did not walk around anymore, so they sat down at a snack bar by the beach in Sea City to eat. The two did not sit at the same table, but had their backs to each other and looked very relaxed. After the disguise, they were no longer reported by the vigilant public, but they did not dare to stay in one place for too long. Because if they stayed for too long, the Wuxia Empire citizens who liked to meddle in other people's business and were suspicious of them again. 2 hours later, the sky finally turned dark. Hong Kongquan and Ito found a secluded place to change into diving suits and sneak into the sea while there was no one in the area. However, they also underestimated the population density of Sea City. In fact, when the two of them changed into diving suits and sneaked into the sea, they were photographed by a photography enthusiast who was taking pictures at the beach. When he looked at the photo himself, he saw the two figures sneaking into the sea. The more he looked at it, the more strange he felt, so he simply sent the photo to the police hotline. 15 minutes later, the photo fell into Wuxiaoheng's hands. He only took one look and recognized that the two people were wearing diving suits and going into the sea. He immediately stood up and said, "Everyone gather. Speedboat out to sea." It was the third watch. It was still the third watch. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. P.S. It's already the end of the month. You can vote for your monthly votes now. Moi. Chapter 1093. The sea rippled slightly under the night sky, the tide lapped on the beach, and the round moon plated the dark blue sea with a layer of silver light. Hong Kongquan wore the diving mask that Ito had given him and dived into the sea. When he sank underwater, he looked up at the bright moonlight in the dark blue sky. The bright moon shines above the sea, and we share the same moment. Who first saw the moon by the river? When did the moon first shine on people? Life is endless, and the moon and the river are similar every year. From now on, will he never see the blue sky and the moon on this land again? Hong Kongquan sighed in his heart and gradually sank below the sea level. Because it was night, the bottom of the sea was dark. Occasionally there were lights swaying overhead, which were the moonlight rippling in the waves. Ito was making final confirmation with the Tokyo Secret Service. Before going into the sea with Hong Kongquan, Ito persuaded him to hand over the first phase of the quantum communication satellite technology and send it to the Tokyo Secret Service. The people there transmitted it to the Japanese scientists who specialized in quantum communication satellites. After confirmation, it was indeed the first phase of the quantum communication satellite technology, which solved the technical problems that they had not been able to solve for many years. It was only after the first phase of the quantum communication satellite technology was in hand that the Japanese were determined to support Hong Kongquan at all costs. When Ito saw Hong Kongquan sink below the sea level, he also hung up the phone, put on his diving mask and sank. They were wearing the latest military diving suits developed by Japan. Not only were there various weapons for self-defense, but there was also advanced scuba equipment that could last them for 2 days and 2 nights. Most importantly, there was a small booster on their back. This booster allowed them to quickly sneak on the bottom of the sea, quickly leave the 12 nautical miles offshore, and enter the exclusive economic zone. After the two dived, they started the booster, creating a series of bubbles and waves on the bottom of the sea, and swam forward quickly like two fish. Ito had a positioning device on him which not only guided them forward, but also made it convenient for the Japanese SAT Special Forces to contact them. With the booster, the two swam really fast and both of them were well-trained professionals. Their speed was no less than that of professional athletes. However, no matter how fast they were, swimming in the water would not be faster than taking a car on the shore. 12 nautical miles was about 22 kilometers on land. With the help of the booster, they could reach a speed of 2 kilometers in half an hour. That was to say, if there were no accidents along the way, it would take them nearly 5.5 hours to swim 12 nautical miles. At that time it should be almost dawn. But although the wish was beautiful, the reality was cruel. After being underwater for half an hour, the two of them couldn't take it anymore. Even with the oxygen supply from the scuba, the pressure at the bottom of the sea was still too much for their bodies to handle. They needed to dive to the surface to get some air. Then he dived into the water and swam for half an hour before coming to the surface. Hong Kongquan popped his head up from the bottom of the sea. In front of him was the vast ocean. He was in the middle of nowhere. He didn't know where his future lay or where his retreat was. All he could do was follow Ito and swim forward. 2 hours later, they surfaced again, and Ito received a signal from the Japanese SAT Special Technology Force. Ito-kun, we've confirmed the location. Don't dive underwater again. We'll find a boat to pick you up. Ito was shocked. You drove the Japanese warship into China's territorial waters. You're all crazy. Although Ito was not a coward, he was still shocked by the lunatics of the Japanese SAT Special Technology Force. Go back. Quickly retreat. You guys want to start a war. Ha ha ha. The voice of Naganabu Sata of the Japanese SAT Special Technology Force came through the headset. How could we drive a warship over? Ito-kun, you're so funny. Knowing that it wasn't a Japanese warship, Ito breathed a sigh of relief. Well, where are you? I'll turn on the GPS. Ito turned on their GPS so that Naganabu Sata could find them. 15 minutes later, the rumbling sound of a motor came from afar. Ito squinted and saw a Wuxia Empire fishing boat coming over through the infrared night vision goggles. It was a very inconspicuous diesel-powered fishing boat, no different from the fishing boats that went in and out of the Sea City port every day, and the words Fortune Star were written on the side of the boat. On the fishing boat, Naganabu Sata confirmed Ito's position and slowly ordered the fishing boat to slow down. When they were near them, a rope ladder was thrown down. Ito and Hong Kongquan gradually approached the fishing boat with the rope ladder, then grabbed it and climbed up. As soon as they reached the boat, the two of them collapsed on the deck and couldn't get up for a long time. Hong Kongquan lay down for a while and felt that his strength was slowly returning, so he propped himself up to sit up. His head moved, and he saw several people tied up in the shadows under the side of the boat not far away. They were bundled into strange shapes and piled up in the corner. Ito sat up and also saw them. He frowned and asked Naganabusada in Japanese. "Who are those people?" "Those people. They're the crew of this ship." Naganabusada curled his lips disdainfully. "We were going to give them money to bring us to rescue you. We got a good deal and they made a fortune. Unfortunately, these people didn't know what was good for them and actually wanted to secretly call the police. We found out and killed them." He made a gesture of cutting his neck with a knife. Ito nodded and said bitterly, "They deserve to die for being nosy. You don't know, if it weren't for these Wuxia people being nosy, I wouldn't have had to take him to hide and finally dive into the sea." "I heard all about it. Ito-kun, you've worked hard." Naganabusada of the SAT Special Forces patted Ito on the shoulder. "But it's all in the past. You have returned to the embrace of the Empire of Japan. The Emperor will definitely give you the highest reward." Although Ito tried his best to restrain himself, he still showed a satisfied smile. Naganabusada walked to Hong Kongquan's side, half-squatted down, smiled, and said again in standard Mandarin, "Welcome, Mr. Hong, to the embrace of the Empire of Japan. The Emperor will definitely give you the highest reward." Hong Kongquan finally sat up, and the expression on his face was a little ugly. He snorted softly and said, "Sir, if I'm not mistaken, you are still in the territorial waters of the Wuxia Empire, right?" "Wrong." Naganabusada stood up with his head held high, his hands on his hips, and said proudly, "Wherever the Japanese SAT Special Forces are, it is the territory of Japan. With us by your side you can be safe." Hong Kongquan raised his eyelids and looked Naganabusada up and down. He was wearing a military uniform unique to the Special Forces. The bulging chest and back showed that this was a special military uniform suitable for amphibious operations. The helmet on his head was like a scuba mask and his face could not be seen at all. The MP-5SD submachine gun slung diagonally across his arm was a miniature submachine gun, but it was still very lethal. The Karlov PB silent pistol hung from his waist, and with the addition of a silencer, it was almost completely silent. The military boots on his feet were also unique. They were thick and long and could be retracted into webbing when necessary. There were also several military daggers tied to his legs, which could cut through the steel plates of tanks as if they were mud. These were all the regular uniforms of the Special Forces, and it was obvious that they were all American equipment. Hong Kongquan looked at the soldiers standing behind Naganabusada. They were all in the same uniform, holding guns and wearing a binocular-like device on their heads. They were on guard. Hong Kongquan looked away, but his heart was still in turmoil. He didn't know how strong the combat effectiveness of these Japanese people was, but he knew how strong Huo Xiaoheng's combat effectiveness was. When Huo Xiaoheng first joined the army, he stood out in the first year of the major maneuver and killed many veterans who had been in the army for many years. His achievements were brilliant, and almost all the generals in the army were excited. However, such an outstanding soldier was not included in any of the military branches, and suddenly disappeared without a trace. Because he was selected by General G, he was given a chance to go to Israel's Mossad to become someone's disciple. When he returned to the army, he had become a lieutenant colonel under Hong Kongquan. He was a strong man who could kill an enemy platoon with his bare hands. If he was given 2 helpers to form a combat team, the 3 of them could kill a company. But looking at the dozen or so Japanese people, Hong Kongquan felt guilty. He coughed and asked, "Just a dozen or so of you dare to boast like this?" "A dozen or so people." Naganabusada laughed strangely and waved his hand. Another dozen or so heads popped out from the boat. With the help of the lanterns on the boat, they could see a dark mass of heads. It turned out that they were all hidden. "I have half of my men here, more than 100 people, and can kill half a regiment. You don't think that the Wuxia Empire will really send a regiment to capture you, do you?" Naganabusada waved his hand and those people went back to their posts. Hong Kongquan nodded. "Not bad, then it's up to you." Naganabusada threw his head back and laughed. "Unfortunately, they won't be able to catch up in time. Otherwise we could have fought. If the Wuxia Empire had an army, I would still be afraid. But the navy? Do you have a navy? Don't think that you are so great just because you have an aircraft carrier. Do you know how to fight a naval battle? Have you ever fought a naval battle? After the Battle of Jiawu, the Wuxia Empire will no longer have a navy. Naganabusada laughed even more wildly, and even a few of the SAT members who were on guard behind him laughed along with him. The Japanese were secretly confident in the Wuxia Empire's navy. Hong Kongquan's face twitched twice, and he didn't know what expression to put on. He should be happy to know that the Wuxia Empire's navy was inferior to the Japanese, because it meant that he was saved and wouldn't die. But why was there still a faint bitterness in his heart? Hong Kongquan lowered his head and found a dark corner to sit down, ignoring the two men. Naganabusada didn't bother to pay attention to him either. He pulled Ito and began to speak Japanese. The moonlight was soft and the waves rippled on the sea. In the vast expanse of smoke, Hua Xiaoheng held binoculars and stood on a black speedboat, speeding like an arrow from a bow. Chief, a fishing boat called the police. They said they were being held hostage by the Japanese and wanted them to rescue them. If we didn't hear wrong, the fisherman who called the police has been killed. The anxious voice of the intelligence analyst came from Hua Xiaoheng's Bluetooth headset. This was the first night watch. It was still the third night watch. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. Monthly votes at 1 p.m. 7,500 plus updates and the third update at 7 p.m. P.S. It's already the end of the month. You can vote for your monthly votes now. Moi. Chapter 1094. When Hua Xiaoheng heard that the fisherman had called the police before he was killed, his expression did not change. He did not even raise his eyebrows, but his hand holding the binoculars sank slightly. He said lightly, "Have the coordinates of the fishing boat been determined?" As long as the phone call from the fishing boat came in, the tracking ability of the Nandu satellite navigation system would be able to easily locate it. The intelligence analyst on the other end of the phone said quickly, "Yes, it has been sent to you." Hua Xiaoheng took out the dedicated navigation phone and looked at it, then compared it with their current position and ordered, "Full rudder on the right, 9 o'clock, 20 nautical miles, full speed ahead." But he also knew that it was not so easy to locate a fishing boat in the vast sea. Moreover, the situation at sea was ever-changing. Even if the other party's position was determined 1 second ago, the other party's position would definitely change after a while. In the end, the boat had been hijacked, and the other party should soon remove the positioning device on the fishing boat, so they would no longer be able to track it. But before that, they still had to work hard to track it down. General Ji had given a strict order that Hong Kongquan must be captured alive. Otherwise, they could directly launch shore-based missiles from the naval base on the coast of Sea City and directly destroy the fishing boat. Anyway, the fisherman had been killed by them, and killing the Japanese on the boat would be avenging the fisherman. 4 speedboats carrying heavily armed members of the Special Operations Forces followed Hua Xiaoheng at a high speed, bumping forward in the increasingly heavy waves, chasing the target in the distance that was getting closer and closer. Unfortunately, their speedboats had chased in the wrong direction. Originally, they were only 7 or 8 nautical miles away, but now they were about 20 nautical miles away. Of course, it was not too late to turn around and chase because the speed of the speedboat was much faster than the fishing boat. Even so, when they saw the white fishing boat in the moonlight, it had already sailed out of the 12 nautical mile territorial area of the Wuxia Empire. Colonel Sata Naganabu of the Japanese SAT Special Forces looked at the 4 speedboats speeding through the wind and waves. He laughed and waved at them, holding the big loudspeaker on the fishing boat and shouting, "Goodbye, everyone. We have already passed 12 nautical miles. You are 1 step too late." The members of the Special Operations Forces on the speedboat were furious. They raised their hands and fired at the small white boat not far away. Naganabusada also had some courage. Instead of hiding, he also raised his MP5SD submachine gun and fired at them. "Let's go. Sayonara." As he spoke, he suddenly whistled in a direction not far away. Hua Xiaoheng's heart tightened as he looked up. Between the vast sea and sky, dozens of Japanese speedboats quickly sailed over to pick up the members of the Japanese Special Forces, Ito and Hong Kongquan on the fishing boat. Looking at the equipment, these were not ordinary speedboats. They were military speedboats equipped with torpedoes. Naganabu Oda used the fishing boat as cover, disembarked from the back of the boat and jumped into the speedboat. Hua Xiaoheng and his team only had 4 speedboats. When they tried to outflank the enemy, they were suppressed by the overwhelming number of speedboats. A Japanese speedboat that was closer to them even fired a torpedo. A huge wave suddenly rose from the water and flipped the speedboat next to Hua Xiaoheng upside down. The 3 members of the Special Operations Forces on the speedboat were not injured. They had only fallen into the water. They quickly swam to the other 3 speedboats and climbed aboard. Naganabusada watched happily with binoculars on the speedboat, laughing so hard that he couldn't straighten his back. I told you that the Wuxia Navy is trash. 12 nautical miles. Let's see how you beat me. If you have the guts, come over with your aircraft carrier. The members of the Japanese SAT Special Forces also laughed at the top of their lungs. It's not that I want to say this, but in a naval battle, you are no match for us. Naganabusada pointed in the direction of Huashaoheng and then pointed to himself. Well, I won't accompany you anymore. You guys have fun. Sayonara. Huashaoheng's speedboat was not equipped with torpedoes for the sake of speed. He didn't expect to be tricked by the other party. However, since they were here, how could they leave so easily? Huashaoheng was prepared. He sneered and said, "Who wants to fight a naval battle with you? You came to my territory and I will fight as I say until I kill you." As he spoke, he slowly raised his hand, picked up the walkie-talkie and said in a deep voice, "Drone forces, get ready. Listen to my coordinates." The dozens of Japanese speedboats in front of them had already turned around and were about to sail into Japanese waters. At this moment, they suddenly felt that the air seemed to be a little heavy, and something with a huge murderous aura was quietly approaching. Several sensitive people held their guns tightly in their hands and kept urging their companions, "Hurry up! Hurry!" They looked up at the sky nervously and were instantly scared out of their wits. Drones. Drones from the Wuxia Empire. No matter how fast their speedboats were, how could they be faster than drones flying in the air? 10 minutes later, a dense group of drones appeared directly above them. Military drones had always been mainly used for high-altitude photography, target detection and picture transmission, but they also had strike capabilities. At present, the most powerful military drone on the Blue Planet was the United States MQ-9 Reaper. This drone was equipped with electronic optics, infrared systems, low-light televisions, and synthetic aperture radar systems. It could carry a multispectral aiming system, as well as laser-guided laser rangefinders and indicators. It had 6 weapon racks and could also carry Hellfire missiles. It was currently the most powerful military drone. The Wuxia Empire's Flying Dragon drone did not have as many fancy reconnaissance and mapping functions as the American Reaper drone. It focused on strike and could carry light machine guns and ammunition, as well as various types of missiles. It was directly connected to the Nanda satellite navigation system and had a very accurate and precise strike capability. Huashaoheng did not intend to use missiles to deal with these Japanese torpedo speedboats. Instead, he wanted to use the drone's precision guidance function to carry out fixed-point elimination of the SAT Special Forces members on the Japanese speedboats. Flying Dragon Number 1, get ready. Target direction at 11 o'clock. Coordinates. Flying Dragon Number 2, get ready. Target direction at 2 o'clock. Coordinates. The commander of the drone battle group sat in the command cabin of the drone in the rear. Based on the images sent back by the drone, he monitored, confirmed, and corrected the target, then decisively pressed the launch button. Precision guidance and fixed-point elimination could ensure that Hong Kongquan would not be killed, but it could also eliminate the enemy's effective forces as much as possible. This was the real purpose of Huashaoheng's drone. The drone's chirping sound continued to ring out on the sea, like the Grim Reaper waving its scythe and constantly harvesting lives. The SAT Special Forces members on the Japanese speedboats did not expect the Wuxia Empire to send drones to attack them. They were so angry that they kept cursing, but there was nothing they could do about it. The drone flashed a cold silver light and swept over their speedboats like a snow-white knife. Every time it turned, a burst of bullets hit the enemy's chest. The SAT Special Forces members on the Japanese speedboats could not lift their heads from the dense rain of bullets. Moreover, they had to protect Hong Kongquan from being killed, so the casualties were even heavier. However, they were desperate to get Hong Kongquan back to Japan. More than half of the 100 most elite Japanese SAT Special Forces had died in an instant, but they were still fearlessly running and driving the remaining speedboats. The drone chased after them like it was taking a leisurely stroll. From time to time, a Japanese Special Forces member would fall into the water after a burst of bullets. Huashaoheng's speedboat followed closely behind, carrying sniper rifles and drones to fight in tandem. For a moment, the sea was filled with murderous intent, and the sound of waves could be heard everywhere. The members of the Special Operations Forces would add a heavy sniper bullet to every Japanese Special Forces member who was shot into the water by the drone. They had to make sure that they died a worthy death. The Japanese SAT Special Forces were stunned by the drone at first, but after a while they regained their senses and began to organize a powerful counterattack. They also had a good sniper, and with the cooperation of their teammates, they quickly shot down a drone. The remaining drones quickly took off, and Huo Xiaoheng immediately directed his teammates to cast electromagnetic interference to help the drone get rid of the sniper rifle. After that, the drone swooped down from the clouds with a more fierce offensive. Intense gunfire once again enveloped the Japanese Special Forces speedboats. As they chased after the drone, everyone's eyes were bloodshot. Chief. Ahead is the border of the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, and beyond that is the Sea of Japan. Do you still want to continue chasing? To be precise, in another 10 nautical miles, it would be the exclusive economic zone of Japan. With the speed of their speedboats, it would only take them a few minutes to break into Japan's exclusive economic zone. This was the second monthly ticket of 7,500 plus the second update. It was still the third update. Everyone's recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. At 7 p.m. the third update. P.S. It's already the end of the month. Dear friends, you can vote for your monthly tickets now. Moi. Chapter 1095. Huo Xiaoheng stared ahead and ordered without hesitation, continue the chase. For the Special Operations Forces, foreign countries were their main battlefield. Following his order, the drone cluster followed them forward, step by step entering the air territory of Japan's exclusive economic zone. There were originally more than 100 people in front of them. They were the so-called elite SAT Special Technology Force of Japan, but Huo Xiaoheng and the drones had already killed less than 10 people. Ito, Naganabusada, and several of their confidants were surrounding Hong Kongquan, using their bodies as a shield to protect him as they rushed anxiously towards the territorial waters of Japan. The drones just now were a one-sided massacre. Naganabusada glanced at the drone in the sky that was still chasing after him. He couldn't help but raise his hand and shoot out a shuttle of bullets. As soon as his muzzle fired, he immediately became the main target of the drones. Because the infrared imaging and aiming technology of the drones at night needed a heat source, the more intense the heat source, the easier it was to focus and aim. As soon as he fired, his position was exposed. Because he was on a narrow speedboat, he couldn't change his position at will, so he could only hold on. Within a minute, a bullet was shot from his back. Naganabusada's body stiffened for a moment, then he fell forward heavily. Oda-kun. His team members shouted together, crying bitterly as they raised their guns and fired at the drones in the sky. The drones aimed accurately again and fired a series of bullets at them. These people on the speedboat swayed left and right, which soon affected the stability and speed of the speedboat. With tears in his eyes, Ito threw the dead members of the special forces into the sea one by one. As soon as he poked his head out, he was shot from behind, forcing him to crawl on the deck of the speedboat with Hong Kongquan firmly under his body. Hong Kongquan knew how powerful Huo Xiaoheng was, but he didn't expect that after so many years Huo Xiaoheng was 100 times more powerful than before. Watching the Special Forces soldiers of the Japanese SAT Special Forces die one by one, Hong Kongquan was scared out of his wits. Originally he still had some feelings of separation and conflict, but they were all wiped out by the drones. He could only lie on the deck with his head in his hands, constantly praying that they would reach the territorial waters of Japan soon. The wind gradually picked up on the sea and there was fog rising. Huo Xiaoheng and the 3 speedboats soon arrived at the center of Japan's exclusive economic zone. The dozens of Japanese torpedo speedboats in front of them had been destroyed by them, and now only one was hanging on by a thread. Give chase at full speed. I'll take 5 people into the sea and the 6 of you cover me. As Huo Xiaoheng spoke, he took off his military uniform to reveal the diving suit he was wearing underneath. The members of the Special Operations Forces beside him did the same thing. They switched to sniper rifles specially used for underwater use, strapped to their waists and carried scuba gear on their backs. They quietly snuck towards the speedboat not far ahead. Hong Kongquan and Ito covered their heads on the deck of the speedboat, covered with a steel plate as a shield. The drone circled overhead, but it was no longer shooting. Because Hong Kongquan and Ito's positions were almost superimposed, the drone operator didn't dare to shoot for fear of killing Hong Kongquan. The two of them waited for a while and realized that the sky was suddenly quiet. The oppressive aura of the drone had suddenly disappeared. Ito raised his head and looked at the dark night sky. The drone that was as terrifying as a silver blade had disappeared. He let out a huge sigh of relief. Had they left? Or had they already reached Japan's territorial waters? so the Wuxia Empire's drones didn't dare to continue their rampage. After all, if the Wuxia Empire's drones dared to shoot in Japan's territorial waters, it would be a declaration of war against Japan and the United States at the same time. Because the United States and Japan had a military alliance, Japan still had US troops stationed in Japan, but it was quite far away from here. Ito waited for a while more. When he confirmed that he didn't hear any more sounds from the drone, he finally gathered his courage and sat cross-legged on the speedboat. The Special Operations Forces member driving the speedboat was already dead next to the rudder, but the speedboat had been set to autopilot and was moving forward according to the preset direction. Ito looked back at the sea behind him and realized that the 3 speedboats from the Wuxia Empire seemed to have disappeared. Did they go back? Or did they go the wrong way? Ito, who had been pursued by the Wuxia Empire for a day and a night, was at his limit physically and mentally. He held onto the deck and tried to stand up shakily. Just then a crisp sound rang out from the stern. Ito and Hong Kongquan both turned to look at it with blank expressions. At that moment, a dark figure holding a gun suddenly jumped out from the stern like a god of the sea. He raised his hand, aimed at Ito's face and fired a shot. Ito's face looked like a flower had bloomed and blood splattered everywhere. He fell backward onto the deck with a loud thud. Ito probably didn't expect to die. After escaping from the Wuxia Empire's tight encirclement for a day and a night, he would be shot dead on the sea just as he was about to reach home. Hong Kongquan's heart sank. Seeing the person's agile movements and how he fired the gun without saying a word, Hong Kongquan knew that this person was none other than Hu Xiaoheng. He retreated cautiously and watched as the person approached him with a gun in one hand and a rope in the other. "Oh, Hu Xiaoheng. Don't do anything stupid. If you dare come any closer, I'll jump off." Hong Kongquan moved to the side of the boat and pretended to jump off. Hu Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks and said calmly, "Jump and I'll collect your corpse." Hong Kongquan was speechless. "Why aren't you jumping anymore?" Hu Xiaoheng took another step forward. Hong Kongquan's eyes flashed as he looked at Hu Xiaoheng greedily at the equipment on his body. He desperately needed a weapon to save his life. "Stop right there." Hong Kongquan was furious. He saw that Hu Xiaoheng had already put the rope on his hand. As he yelled, he suddenly rolled to the side. One of his hands reached out from under his abdomen, revealing a small pistol the size of a palm. He aimed at Hu Xiaoheng's chest and shot him. At such a close distance, Hu Xiaoheng couldn't dodge in time. The shot hit him hard in the chest, and the strong impact almost knocked him out. However, he was fine because he was wearing the military's latest polymer bulletproof vest. Not only was it thin and light, but it was also very strong and tough. It could even block submachine gun bullets, let alone half a bullet. When Hong Kongquan saw that he had hit Hu Xiaoheng, he was overjoyed. He thought that as long as Hu Xiaoheng was dead, he would be able to get back at him. He could even push all the blame onto Hu Xiaoheng. However, when he saw that Hu Xiaoheng was walking normally even though he had been shot, he suddenly remembered the bulletproof vest, and the expression on his face darkened. Hu Xiaoheng didn't walk in front of him. Instead, he stepped aside. 5 more soldiers jumped onto the speedboat from behind. They didn't like Hong Kongquan at all. They immediately handcuffed him, tied him up, and placed him in a corner of the deck. Hu Xiaoheng ordered his men to clean up the boat before steering it back. After capturing Hong Kongquan and wiping out half of the enemy's elite special forces, everyone was in high spirits. They didn't feel sleepy even though they hadn't slept the whole night. Hu Xiaoheng stood next to the rudder of the speedboat, wondering if he should continue driving the speedboat back or call for a helicopter. Just as he was thinking, a large destroyer appeared on the surface of the sea not far away. There were also several small ships coming from all directions, blocking Hu Xiaoheng's way. They couldn't go back, nor could they go forward. Seeing that they were surrounded, Hu Xiaoheng didn't think any further. He simply ordered, "Jump into the sea and swim back to our speedboat." The 6 Special Operations Forces members behind them didn't give them any warning, but Hu Xiaoheng knew that they were behind them. The Japanese destroyer was in front, and it was even later than Hu Xiaoheng's group. The 5 Special Operations Forces members he brought with him jumped into the sea without saying a word. Hu Xiaoheng grabbed Hong Kongquan's arm with one hand and jumped into the sea as well. Hong Kongquan opened his mouth to complain that he didn't have a diving suit, but Hu Xiaoheng blocked his mouth and put a scuba mask on his back. He said, "We won't dive. We'll only swim. We have to be fast." Hong Kongquan was so angry that he felt dizzy, but he couldn't move Hu Xiaoheng at all. He quickly pulled the rope and pulled Hong Kongquan into the water. Soon they were underwater. It was the 3rd watch. It was still the 3rd watch. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. P.S. It's already the end of the month. You can vote for your monthly votes now. Moi. Chapter 1096. The seawater in early spring was chilly. Although they were wearing diving suits, they still couldn't block out the bone-chilling cold. As soon as they entered the water, they heard a loud bang. Huge waves were set off on the surface of the sea, and the calm sea suddenly became turbulent. Xiaoheng wore waterproof night vision goggles and looked up. The speedboat that had just been not far above their heads had been blown to pieces and blown up. The Japanese warships had opened fire. Did they not care about Hong Kongquan's life? And those Japanese Special Forces soldiers, did they not care? What if someone was still alive? Once they opened fire, the possibility of the people on the speedboat surviving was zero. Xiaoheng vaguely felt that something was wrong, but at this time, there was no point in thinking about it. What he needed to do now was to quickly take his own people away from the Japanese exclusive economic zone. As long as they returned to the international waters, the drones would be able to pick them up. Xiaoheng didn't believe that those warships would dare to chase them out of the international waters. If they came, then it would be good to test the accuracy of the Flying Dragon drone. It could also be considered an actual combat exercise. As Xiaoheng thought about it, he used the communicator in his mask to contact his own people. He called for the 5 Special Operations Forces members he had brought with him to gather together. They formed 2 combat teams of 3 and surrounded Hong Kongquan in the middle. Because right now he was a target that they needed to protect. Even if they brought him back and what awaited him was a death sentence at this moment, this was their mission and mission. It was the soldiers' duty to obey orders. No matter how much they despised this person's despicable and evil deeds, they had to protect him. The explosion on the sea reflected the flames that shot up into the sky, making the water much clearer. Xiaoheng and the others also met up with the 6 Special Operations Forces members who had been on the speedboat. Not including Hong Kongquan, there were now 12 of them. They formed combat teams of 3 and formed a triangle underwater. Relying on the wristwatches on their wrists to guide the direction, they swam towards the Wuxia Empire coastline. The waves were still swaying above their heads, and the flames shone through the water. They silently and vigilantly paddled while keeping an eye on the direction behind them. At this moment, a long rope suddenly shot out from behind them. At the end of the long rope was a long, thin, and sharp triangular cone. It flashed with a beautiful black light and brought with it a burst of splashes. Shrink to the right. Xiaoheng happened to be swimming on the left. From the corner of his eye, he saw the long rope and the sharp awl at the head of the rope. He immediately gave the order. At the same time, he quickly pulled out a double-edged dagger made of special materials from his waist and slashed at the long rope. The dagger was black and heavy, its blade unremarkable. As soon as he got close to the rope, he felt the resistance of steel. Xiaoheng's eyebrows twitched. This rope was actually made of thin iron. Fortunately, his double-edged dagger was also made of special materials. It could even cut through the steel plates of tanks, so it was naturally invincible against this kind of thin iron rope. The seawater splashed and the long rope broke into 2 pieces, falling softly to the bottom of the sea. Xiaoheng immediately informed his companions and told them to be careful. Sure enough, on the other side of them, there was also a thin iron rope that silently attacked them. Because the aftershock of the explosion above their heads had not yet dissipated, the seawater was still turbulent. Therefore, these thin iron ropes swaying below the sea level were not easy to detect. However, Xiaoheng was more sensitive than the average person, and they were not ordinary soldiers. The equipment they wore was all the best on the Blue Planet, so these thin iron ropes with sharp awls did not pose a threat to them. It was just that gradually, as they constantly dodged the thin iron ropes, they gradually deviated from their established route. By the time Xiaoheng discovered it, they were already approaching the territorial waters of Japan. This meant that they were getting further and further away from the territorial waters of the Wuxia Empire. Xiaoheng's heart sank, and he vaguely understood the intentions of the Japanese. They wanted to force them to the territorial waters of Japan and then capture them all in one fell swoop. As soon as he thought of this possibility, Xiaoheng immediately contacted the ground. Request for drone support. Request for drone support. The enemy has warships. The news of his request for drone support was quickly reported to the Supreme Military Council in the imperial capital. General Ji immediately called for an emergency meeting and informed Speaker Long to attend. Speaker Long was called from the Senate building in the middle of the night, and only then did he know that Xiaoheng and the others were in danger in Japan's maritime exclusive economic zone. The current situation is that they are already within the maritime exclusive economic zone of Japan. If we send drones, will the Japanese think that we are invading their territorial waters? A general of the Supreme Military Council said worriedly. We have often seen and often protested against the United States doing this. We cannot become the kind of people that we protest against. Out of the 7 members of the Supreme Military Council, 3 of them had the same opinion as this general. They believed that drones should not be sent into the maritime exclusive economic zone of another country. General G was seething with anger when he heard this. He rolled up his sleeves and yelled at them, "What nonsense are you talking about? They are our soldiers now. Our soldiers. They are risking their lives for our country's secrets. Who cares how the Japanese protest? Anyway, if they send out warships, I will send out drones. It's just an exclusive economic zone, not a territorial sea. I'm not afraid of them." General G felt like his heart was being stabbed by a knife when he thought about how Hua Xiaoheng was in danger because he wanted to catch the traitor Hong Kongquan. If the military talents that he had painstakingly trained were to be defeated in the Sea of Japan just like that, he would not be able to rest in peace. Speaker Long's face paled when he heard this, but he still stood on General G's side. He said in a low voice, "I agree with General G. At a time like this, who cares what others think? What do you say? Saving people is more important. In any case, you can leave the verbal sparring to me in the future. You don't have to worry about it. Feel free to send out the drones to save people." He knew Hua Xiaoheng's position in the military and his contributions to the country. No matter what, even if he were to be criticized internationally for being a hooligan and having double standards, it was better than losing his most precious talent. General G saw that Speaker Long agreed with him and let out a long sigh of relief. In this vote, Speaker Long counted for 2 votes per person, and 1 vote belonged to the elected Prime Minister who was still counting the votes. Therefore they had 5 votes on their side for more than the other side. After voting, they decided to send drones over Japan's maritime exclusive economic zone to save people. After the decision was made, they immediately called the garrison base in Sea City. By this time, almost half an hour had passed since Hua Xiaoheng had requested for drone reinforcements. The thin iron ropes that had been pulled from all angles had been replaced with thin iron ropes with barbs, which were extraordinarily tough underwater. The crisscrossed thin iron ropes at the bottom of the sea almost formed a maze. Including Hong Kongquan, they had 13 people at the bottom of the sea, and 3 of them had already been scratched by the barbs of the thin iron ropes. Their wounds were bloody, and the smell of blood at the bottom of the sea attracted bloodthirsty fish. Fortunately, there were no sharks here. Otherwise, it would have been even worse for them. The Japanese warships on the surface of the sea couldn't wait any longer. They fired torpedoes at the bottom of the sea again and again, but not in their direction, only in the direction they wanted to swim back. The shells blocked their way. The only place they could go seemed to be back into Japan's territorial waters. But they all knew that once they entered Japan's territorial waters, they really wouldn't be able to escape. Just as they were about to be forced to swim in the direction of Japan's territorial waters, the Huaxia Empire's drones finally arrived. Just like the speedboats that hunted the Japanese special forces in the Huaxia Empire's maritime exclusive economic zone, this time, their target was the Japanese light destroyer. Drones? How can the Huaxia Empire's drones be here? Are they declaring war? The soldiers on the Japanese destroyer were furious. These were F*King invisible drones. Because there was no indication on the radar at all. Even when it was visible to the naked eye, the radar was still silent. Da-da-da-da. The drones poured ammunition. This time, because they were going to deal with the Japanese warships, the Flying Dragon drones also carried small air-to-ground cruise missiles with dual laser guidance mode. The error was less than 0.1 meters. A series of small air-to-ground cruise missiles were aimed at the largest destroyer, whistling through the air. Boom, boom, boom. The command cabin of the Japanese destroyer, which was the overall commander this time, was instantly blown into a boiling sea of fire. The supreme commander of the battle, the rear admiral of the Japanese special forces, was killed on the spot. There were also a few colonels who died with him under the drone's cruise missiles. A drone could only carry 6 cruise missiles, so they immediately returned after 1 round, and the ones behind them followed. After a few rounds of bombing, all the targets that could be seen on the surface of the sea were destroyed before they successfully returned. New drones came up to escort Hua Xiaoheng and the others back. The pressure on Hua Xiaoheng and the others was instantly relieved. Everyone floated up and looked at the destroyed warships and speedboats in the sea not far away. There were also many Japanese Marines who jumped into the sea to survive. They all felt especially relieved. If it weren't for the fact that they were in a hurry to go back, they would have shot a few more times. With the drone's escort, Hua Xiaoheng and the others could swim back to their ships with Hong Kongquan. While waiting, Hong Kongquan tried to escape during the chaos in the water, but Hua Xiaoheng knocked him out with the butt of his gun. He was still unconscious. It was more convenient to bring him along this way, and they didn't need to dive anymore. They only needed to swim a short distance to leave Japan's maritime exclusive economic zone. At that moment, a member of the Special Operations Forces who was swimming at the front suddenly screamed. Blood rose from the surface of the sea, and then his body floated silently on the surface of the sea. However, the drones didn't find any targets attacking them at sea. What was going on? When the second member of the Special Operations Forces also screamed, Hua Xiaoheng immediately ordered, "Dive underwater." When they dove from the surface of the sea into the water, they discovered where the danger was. The frogmen troops. Because the sea was blocked by the Huaxia Empire's drones, the Japanese simply sent out their most elite underwater frogmen troops. This was the first night watch. It was still the third night watch. A reminder to everyone about the recommendation votes and monthly votes. At 1 p.m., the monthly vote was 7,800 plus the third night watch at 7 p.m. P.S. Today is the last day of August, right? If you don't vote, your monthly votes will be invalid. Can you see my hungry little eyes? Mwah. Chapter 1097. The Japanese frogmen were the elite of the Marine Corps. It could be said that they were the special forces of the special forces because they had to be proficient in amphibious operations. They had one more special skill than the special forces that focused on land training. Of course, as the name implied, they were more responsible for underwater surprise attacks and reconnaissance missions. On the rippling seabed, the APS underwater assault rifle with the special scuba on their backs and the automatic rifle in their hands aimed at them. This kind of rifle was specially used underwater. The bullet's flight relied on fluid mechanics, so there was no rifling in the gun. The shape of the bullet was more slender, which could maximize its speed and would not cause bubbles. The death and injury of the two Special Operations Forces members were all thanks to this kind of gun. Hua Xiaoheng turned around in the water and saw the situation around him clearly. There were frogmen carrying APS underwater assault rifles in all directions, looking at them coldly as if they were looking at a group of dead people. Hua Xiaoheng was calm in the face of danger and immediately ordered, "Spread out and get water. Make as big a splash as possible." The members of the Special Operations Forces were also trained in underwater combat. Upon hearing this, they immediately spread out and waved their guns in the sea. They used their hands and feet and flopped on the bottom of the sea. Their sudden movement caused the sea to suddenly become turbulent. The waves rolled and greatly blocked the frogmen's vision. Being unable to see clearly underwater meant that they couldn't aim accurately. And underwater was different from land. The consequence of not aiming accurately was very likely to hit one's own people, because they had more people on their own side than the people who were surrounded. Now there were more than 200 heavily armed frogmen surrounding the 13 Huaxia Empire soldiers. Although they were at the bottom of the sea, this formation was absolutely magnificent. They were certain that these people would not be able to escape from their palms. Hua Xiaoheng swung his legs, slapping the water as hard as he could while looking for a place to land on the bottom of the sea. This area of the sea was not deep, but of course it was not shallow either. There were many underwater reefs, and there were colorful coral reefs standing in the sea. Colorful fish swam through the gaps in the coral reefs and were driven away by the startled water created by this group of people. Hua Xiaoheng quickly found a coral reef near the surface of the sea and informed his teammates through the communicator in his mask. 5 o'clock direction, coral reefs 20 meters away. 3 in a triangular formation. Hide in groups of 4. If they didn't have the same equipment to deal with the frogmen at the bottom of the sea, they could only wait. Hua Xiaoheng stirred the water as he directed everyone to retreat. At this moment, a few frogmen couldn't hold it in anymore. They wanted to claim the greatest military achievement of the Japanese Empire since the armistice, so they swung their flippers and rushed towards Hua Xiaoheng. Because Hua Xiaoheng and the others had made too much of a splash, the frogmen were afraid of accidentally injuring their own people, so they only surrounded them and didn't continue to shoot. The frogmen were the first to rush over. They had originally wanted to snatch the battle credit, but before they could even get close, they discovered that the Huaxia Empire soldiers they had been staring at had suddenly disappeared in front of them. What the hell? Where could they hide on the vast ocean floor? A frogman held his APS underwater assault rifle and became vigilant. But it was too late. He suddenly felt his legs sink as if they were wrapped by something. He hurriedly raised his gun and wanted to shoot down. Wuxiaoheng had already moved forward. His strong arms were like iron arms as he twisted the frogman's neck with both hands and quickly spun it 360 degrees. There was no sound underwater. The frogman's head had already collapsed softly, and he was instantly killed. Wuxiaoheng then pulled out his scuba, removed his equipment and carried it on his back. He also took his APS underwater assault rifle and bullet clip, and kicked his body out. The frogman's body floated to the surface of the sea and drifted in the direction of Japan's territorial waters. The other frogman's bodies also quickly floated to the surface of the sea. The frogman killed by Wuxiaoheng still had his clothes on, but the frogmen killed by Wuxiaoheng's teammates had been stripped clean and thrown into the sea. All their equipment and clothes had been taken away by their Special Operations Forces teammates. After a round of killing, the smell of blood in the waters on their side was getting thicker. The frogmen behind them didn't dare to come over for the time being, but they lined up in formation and slowly approached them. Wuxiaoheng and the others had 7 or 8 sets of frogman equipment in their hands. Although it wasn't enough to equip everyone with a set, it was enough. Besides, they weren't taking the initiative to attack. They were just hiding in the caves formed by the coral reefs and waiting for their prey. The few of them happily swam behind the coral reef bunker they found and began to distribute the equipment. Wuxiaoheng only took the APS underwater assault rifle and leaned against the reef next to the coral reef alone, continuing to communicate with the land. The other party sent frogmen to block our retreat, so we can't get out for the time being. Before Wuxiaoheng could finish his sentence, a rustling sound came from the headset. His heart sank. If he heard correctly, this was the sound of electromagnetic interference. After waiting silently for a few minutes, Wuxiaoheng once again opened the communication line with the base and found that it was still the same rustling sound. It was like the sound of silkworms spitting silk on a rainy night. It should have been full of hope, but now it only brought Wuxiaoheng cold despair. Wuxiaoheng held the APS underwater assault rifle and quietly performed his guard duty. He had already begun to think about how to save himself. No matter what, even if all 12 of them died in battle, Hong Kongquan had to be safely sent back to the territorial waters of the Wuxia Empire. He raised the gun expressionlessly and pulled the trigger at a frogman who was sneakily swimming over in front of him. The slender arrow-like bullet spun out of the barrel, cut through the seawater, and pierced the frogman's chest where his heart was. The frogman spasmed twice under the water, his hands and feet moving wildly. The gun hung diagonally from his arm, but his entire body lost its balance and began to fall. Wuxiaoheng swam over, pulled the man's body over, removed all his equipment and threw him out. They had another set of frogman equipment. From night to day they confronted each other for 8 hours. The seawater turned from dark to bright, and they could see their surroundings more clearly. The frogman equipment around them also increased, and there were already more than 20 sets. This meant that they had killed more than 20 frogmen, which meant that they had killed 1/10 of the enemy's team. Although this was not a very good result, it was definitely not bad either. The Japanese frogmen were shocked by the powerful combat effectiveness of the 12 Wuxia Empire soldiers and did not dare to sneak attack again. They did not even dare to get within 100 meters of the coral reef. They hid far away but did not relax their encirclement. 8 hours passed and Wuxiaoheng tried countless times, but the electromagnetic interference was still strong and effective. They could not get in touch with the base. 8 hours ago, when Wuxiaoheng's contact with the base was cut off, Gunyanji discovered it. Because she was in the central control room, which had the best supercomputer monitoring system in the entire Wuxia Empire, and even the entire Blue Planet. The voting for the general election had ended, and the counting of votes had also ended. They could use their central control system again. Gunyanji did not leave. She and the 27 people took on the task of helping Wuxiaoheng and the others communicate with the information. Wuxiaoheng and the others' tracking of Hong Kongquan this time and calling for drones out to sea were all coordinated and arranged by Gunyanji behind the scenes. She even optimized and modified the drone's precision strike program, so that the error of shooting and dropping bombs at an altitude of 5,000 meters was accurate to 0.01 meters. This kind of error was completely negligible in actual combat. It was just like a full critical hit in a game, where a fatal punch could be delivered at any time and anywhere. Just as she was nervously watching, she suddenly found that Wuxiaoheng's contact with the base had been cut off. This had never happened before. Because Gu Nianji was checking the fixed connection signal between Hua Xiaoheng's equipment and the Nandu satellite system, it was not necessary for him to contact the base for the signal to be smooth. She used a small program to ping once every 10 seconds. If there was no problem with the connection, the ping would be smooth. So when her small program suddenly began to report errors, and even the ping was not smooth, Gu Nianji knew that there was a problem. She quickly opened Hua Xiaoheng's frequency and began to call him directly. However, there was only a rustling sound, like silkworms spinning silk on a rainy night. But Gu Nianji knew that this rustling sound was not from silkworms spinning silk on a rainy night. It was electromagnetic interference. Hua Xiaoheng and the others' communication was blocked by the Japanese. Gu Nianji stood up quickly and went outside to call General Ji. This was the second monthly vote of 7,800 plus the next update. Today was still the third update. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. 7 p.m. the third update. P.S. Today is the last day of August, right? Our monthly votes will be invalid if we don't vote. Do you see my hungry little eyes? Moi. Chapter 1098. General Ji. Something might have happened to Hua Xiao. Gu Nianji took a deep breath and tried to speak in a calm tone. However, the increased speed of her speech still exposed the worry and fear in her heart. General Ji had just walked into his office when he received the call. Thinking of the emergency meeting last night to use the drones, General Ji's heart sank. Was there a problem more difficult to deal with than drones? Nianji, speak slowly. What do you think happened? General Ji asked kindly as he sat down and took a sip of tea. Gu Nianji composed herself and whispered, I just discovered that Hua Xiao's communication may have been interfered with by electromagnetic interference. Communication is not smooth, so it naturally means that the enemy is causing trouble. General Ji, so it was a guess. You really lost to her. General Ji's mood improved. He smiled and said, there are many reasons why communication is not smooth. Besides, they are now at sea. Gu Nianji quickly asked, they are still at sea? Are there no ships to pick them up? It's fine, it's fine. General Ji laughed and picked up the military briefing on his desk to glance at it. At the top was the situation of Hua Xiaoheng and his team. This was what he had requested to be reported to him in time. Encountered the Japanese frogmen at the bottom of the sea. It was only a simple line of words, but General Ji's back suddenly broke out in sweat. He immediately interrupted Gu Nianji, who was still arguing on the other side of the phone, and said, Nianji, you guessed right. Something might have happened to Xiaoheng and his team. At that moment, Gu Nianji only felt that she could not breathe normally. Her little face was flushed, and after a while, she said in a trembling voice, it's just electromagnetic interference. Something might not have happened, right? Just now, she was worried that something had happened to Hua Xiaoheng, but General Ji felt that she was worrying too much. Now that General Ji felt that something must have happened to Hua Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji was unwilling. Nothing happened, nothing happened. Nothing must have happened. Nothing must have happened. Don't worry, I'll find out what exactly happened. General Ji said as he dialed another line's internal number. This time, he called the local Special Operations Forces branch in Sea City. What's going on with your chief? Is there any news? The operator on the other side quickly connected the call to the head of the branch. Reporting to chief. Just now, Major General Hua's call with the base was suddenly cut off. After analysis, we concluded that there was electromagnetic interference on the sea. The call was suddenly cut off? What did he say? General Ji asked sternly. Did you take any follow-up measures? I'm working on it. We've already sent ships out to sea for anti-interference. The person in charge on the other side was also very nervous. Major General Hua's last words were that the other party had sent frogmen to block our way out, so we can't get out for the time being. General Ji only knew that Hua Xiaoheng had encountered frogmen, but he didn't expect there to be follow-up reports. Connecting the dots, Gu Nianji's worries were very reasonable. All right, report to me every half an hour. Even if there's nothing, you have to report to me. Yes, Chief. The person in charge of the Sea City base agreed readily. Of course, they knew how important Hua Xiaoheng was. He was their chief. If something happened, the Special Operations Forces would not be as powerful as they were now. No matter what, she couldn't let anything happen to him. General Ji put down the intercom and discovered that Gu Nianji was still holding her breath and waiting on the other line. He couldn't help feeling a little sad. Nianji, don't worry. It's like this. General Ji didn't choose to hide it and told Gu Nianji everything. He knew that Gun Yanji was already He Xiaoheng's wife, a military wife. As a military wife, they had to bear more than ordinary women. Not only did they have to be separated for a long time, but they also had to live with the person they loved the most. Gun Yanji was still young, and General Ji didn't even know if He Xiaoheng had made the right choice. Could this girl, who was less than 20 years old, bear these burdens that even mature women rarely could? Gun Yanji didn't think too much about it. When she heard General Ji say that He Xiaoheng's last words were "frogman troops blocking the way out," she immediately asked, "General Ji, I know that the army has a new anti-frogman weapon. Why can't we use it immediately?" This was a military secret. General Ji chuckled and said vaguely, "Don't worry, they're already organizing a rescue." "How can I not worry?" Gun Yanji was really anxious. "Just tell me, will you send your secret weapon?" For Gun Yanji now, she didn't care too much about other things. She just wanted He Xiaoheng to come back alive. Secret weapon? What are you talking about? General Ji was still stubbornly resisting in an attempt to muddle through. Gun Yanji said bluntly, "Don't you have an underwater drone codenamed Jiaolong? Why don't you send it to deal with the frogmen?" She knew about this underwater drone, and of course she had heard He Xiaoheng talk to Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang about it at the dining table. General Ji sighed. "Yanji, be reasonable. That place is already Japan's exclusive maritime economic zone. It was already an exception for us to send an aerial drone. If we were to send an underwater drone, it would be very difficult to control the scale. I'll be honest with you, underwater drone technology is not mature yet. The situation underwater is ever-changing, and it's much more difficult than controlling an aerial drone. If the range of the underwater drone is not controlled, it is very likely to hit Japan's territorial waters. Yanji, do you know what the consequences will be if our shells hit Japan's territorial waters?" Of course, Gun Yanji knew what the consequences were. It was equivalent to a declaration of war. But so what? She just wanted He Xiaoheng to come back. However, this thought only turned in her mind for a moment before it was driven out. Because she knew that if she really did that, He Xiaoheng would definitely be unhappy. He worked hard for the military on missions to protect his country, not to start a war for his own personal gain. If it really came to that, He Xiaoheng would definitely feel that it would be better to die. Gun Yanji closed her eyes and took a step back. "Then I request to go to Sea City to help with the rescue. Is that okay?" She made this request to participate in the military's rescue activities. General Ji was even more embarrassed. He hesitated for a long time before saying, "Yanji, this military operation is a secret operation. Your security qualifications?" He Xiao said that my security qualifications are the same as yours and Speaker Long's. Gun Yanji insisted. "Please let me go. I can operate computers better than them and I'm very good at swimming. I'm even better than He Xiao." She had once rescued He Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi from the Blue Hole in the Caribbean Sea. This time, Gun Yanji was not afraid at all when facing the Japanese frogmen. General Ji still refused. "Yanji, when it comes to swimming, we have many good swimmers in the military. You just wait quietly." Gun Yanji still refused. "General Ji, if you don't agree, I will keep begging and begging until you agree. Let's talk about it later. I'm going to a meeting." General Ji put down the phone and ignored Gun Yanji's unreasonable request. Gun Yanji did not give up. She returned to the central control room and looked at the situation regarding the Japanese frogmen. She was busy for 2 hours. 2 hours later, she received news that the military's first rescue attempt had failed. There were no casualties, but the strong electromagnetic interference in the Japanese sea caused any ship to deviate from the established course. Since they couldn't even find where the people were, how could they rescue them? Therefore they had to withdraw all of them. After General Ji received the news, he immediately informed Gun Yanji and said, "Don't worry, we will think of another way." "What else are you thinking about?" "It's been 2 hours. Gun Yanji was anxious. "They are at the bottom of the sea. They are surrounded by frogmen. They will be trapped to death." General Ji's eyes dimmed. They speculated that this was the Japanese's intention. They didn't know what went wrong in the middle, but these Japanese did not even care about Hong Kongchuan's life and only focused on dealing with He Xiaoheng. "Yanji, you have to believe in Xiaoheng, believe." Before General Ji could finish, Gun Yanji interrupted him and said, "General Ji, I remember now. If the military can't carry out anti-electromagnetic interference, we can find an expert." "Expert?" "Yes, Miss Song Jining, the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. She is a great expert in anti-electromagnetic interference. I remember Huo said that they once encountered strong electromagnetic interference in the air, and it was Miss Song who successfully carried out anti-interference. When Gu Nianji said this, General Ji also remembered and quickly slammed the table. Okay. I will contact Director Song immediately. Gu Nianji had already put down the phone and returned to Huo Xiaoheng's official residence. She hurriedly packed a suitcase and asked someone to send her to the Institute of High Energy Physics to find Song Jining. It was the third watch. It was still the third watch. Everyone's recommendation votes and monthly votes. P.S. It's already the last day of the month. You can vote for your monthly votes now. Mwah. P.S. If the plot is flat, you can say it's bullsh *t. If the plot is full of ups and downs, you can say it's unbearable. So what are these annoying little fairies doing? Hurry up and hand over your monthly votes. And the guaranteed monthly votes for next month. Please leave it here today. Tomorrow's plot will be even more exciting. Mwah, all the annoying little fairies. Chapter 1099. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and the spring morning in the imperial capital still carried a slight chill. The sky nearby was as blue as a thick jelly that wouldn't melt. In the distance it was like a palette of an oil painting full of strong colors. Orange, bright blue, bright purple, bright red, all kinds of rich colors collided together. It was an abstract painting by Monet, just waiting for the morning sun in the east to spray out thousands of rays of golden light. Gu Nianji wore a pair of Louis Vuitton black army boots, tailored black, slim leg wool cropped pants, and a white Egyptian cotton iron-free shirt with a large lapel. She also wore an old dark army green flight jacket. She looked very heroic and outstanding. Her long hair was tied into a bun at the back of her head, revealing her smooth forehead. She wore a pair of large aviator sunglasses on her face, making her small face seem even more palm-sized. She dragged an old LV suitcase and stood at the entrance of the Institute of High Energy Physics. She pushed the aviator sunglasses on her head and said to the guard, "Please tell her that I want to see Director Song. Just tell her that Gu Nianji wants to see her." As the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, Song Jining usually didn't see outsiders unless they made an appointment. However, the guard glanced at Gu Nianji and was swayed by the sincere pleading look in her big eyes. He hesitated for a moment. Wait a moment. He picked up the phone and called Song Jining's office. Is this Director Song's office? A Miss Gu Nianji wants to see Director Song. Is that okay? The person who answered the phone was Song Jining's secretary. She knew Gu Nianji and knew that she used to be Director Song's son's girlfriend, so she put down the phone and knocked on Song Jining's office door. Director Song, Miss Gu Nianji is here. She wants to see you. Song Jining had just put down the phone with General Ji. Her expression was very serious. She froze for a moment and nodded instinctively. Let her in. Gu Nianji came to Song Jining's office and closed the office door. She walked to Song Jining's desk with a straight face and said anxiously, Director Song, are you going to see City to participate in the military rescue work? Can you take me with you? Song Jining had indeed agreed to the military's request. Even if that person was not her only son, as the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, it was her duty to save the soldiers of her country. However, because her son was one of the people in danger, her mood was inevitably affected, and she was not as calm as she used to be. Now that she saw someone who was even more panicked than she was, Song Jining's nervousness was strangely alleviated. She looked Gu Nianji up and down and said with a smile, Look at you. Even if I say no, you'll still sneak over by yourself, won't you? The clothes and shoes he was wearing were all for traveling, not to mention the small suitcase in his hand. Gu Nianji smiled guiltily and tried her best to fight for herself. So don't give me a chance to sneak over. Just take me there openly. I can be your assistant. When you carry out anti-electromagnetic interference, I can escort you. I can even hack into Japan's electromagnetic interference system and see what programs they are using. Oh? Can you do that? Song Jining rolled her eyes and thought it was a good idea. To tell you the truth, the last time we went to Sea City, although the magnetic field that suddenly appeared there was a trap, the other party gave us a lot of data. I made a new breakthrough in my research on electromagnetic induction and I really want to give it a try. Oh. Really? Gu Nianji was overjoyed. She liked to cause trouble, especially when it came to lifting a rock and smashing it on someone else's foot. She happily moved closer to Song Jining and hugged her arm. Mrs. Song, Auntie Song, Kiss Beauty Song. Take me with you. I'll help you experiment with your latest results. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Song Jining was very satisfied with Gun Yenji's IQ and had hoped that Gun Yenji could study high-energy physics with her. Now that Gun Yenji had volunteered, she naturally couldn't be happier. She held her hand and said, "Then remember, stay by my side and listen to me. Don't run around. Xiaoheng won't be happy if he finds out you're disobedient." The corners of Gun Yenji's mouth twitched. She thought that in Mrs. Song's eyes she was still a child. However, this wasn't the time to argue with Mrs. Song about whether she was an adult or not. No matter what request she made, Gun Yenji would only nod and agree, let alone be by Mrs. Song's side. Gun Yenji quickly said, "That's for sure. I'll be your attendant and your assistant. Come, what luggage do you have? I'll carry it for you." Song Jining smiled and said, "I'll pack the equipment. Help me go to my dormitory and pack a few changes of clothes, shoes and socks. We'll meet at the door in 15 minutes. The military car will arrive in 15 minutes." Gun Yenji immediately saluted. "Yes, director." "Naughty." Song Jining smiled and pinched her little nose. She gave Gun Yenji the key to her dormitory and quickly got busy in the laboratory. This time, she would bring her latest research results to Sea City. She wanted to see to what extent she could exert her electromagnetic induction this time. A few days ago, when she was sorting out her research results, she had lamented that she couldn't do real application experiments. Now her wish could be fulfilled. She used these thoughts to numb herself and not focus on Hua Xiaoheng's danger. Because she couldn't think about it. The moment she thought about it, she would collapse. She felt as if her heart had been dug out. She couldn't collapse. There were still many people waiting for her to rescue. Half an hour later, Gun Yenji and Song Jining had already boarded the military's private plane. The plane rose into the air and whistled in the direction of Sea City. When General Ji found out that Gun Yenji had already boarded the private plane with Song Jining, they had already landed in Sea City. Gun Yenji received a call from General Ji as soon as she got off the plane. "Gun Yenji, are you itching for a beating? You don't even listen to me." General Ji bluffed and scolded her over the phone, but in fact his tone was more worried than angry. He really didn't want anything to happen to Gun Yenji at this time. If Hua Xiaoheng knew that the person he loved the most was in danger again while he was risking his life for the country, even a cold-hearted person like General Ji would feel sorry. A soldier's heart couldn't be hurt again. Protecting Gun Yenji was probably Hua Xiaoheng's greatest wish. All General Ji could do was fulfill this wish for Hua Xiaoheng. Gun Yenji was already very familiar with General Ji, but it wasn't the time to joke around. She was very embarrassed by General Ji's yelling and said sheepishly, "General Ji, don't blame me. It was Miss Song who asked me to go with her." As she spoke, she handed the phone to Song Jining, then clasped her hands in front of her chest and looked at her pleadingly. She mouthed over and over again, "Please, please, please, please." Song Jining patted her bun hair in amusement and took the phone. She said calmly to General Ji on the other end of the line, "General Ji, this is Song Jining. It was me who asked Yenji to go with me. There are some instruments that I don't trust to be operated by others. Yenji is smart and a fast learner. She's not an outsider, so she can help me in case the secret is leaked." The phrase "in case the secret is leaked" completely shut General Ji up. He knew that Song Jining's latest research results were top national secrets, and she was using it to save people. She was also using it against the Japanese, who loved to steal Huaxia civilization and secrets, so she couldn't be too careful. This reason was enough, so General Ji had nothing else to say. He could only change the topic. "Then Director Song, please take care of Yenji. She's young and doesn't know much. Take good care of her and don't let her run around. Xiaoheng will thank you when he comes back." He spoke as if he was Gun Yenji's elder. He was just short of bowing to Song Jining. Song Jining was amused. She thought to herself, "This is my son's beloved girl. Don't I know my son's heart better than you, General Ji?" What a joke. However, General Ji was able to treat Gun Yenji like a junior, which was enough to show that Gun Yenji was a likable girl. Not everyone could make these high-ranking people feel compassion for them. Song Jining agreed immediately. "Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on her. When Xiaoheng comes back, she'll be the first person he sees." General Ji chuckled and put down the phone. His expression quickly became serious as he said to Secretary Chow, "How's the election going? Are the results out yet?" Secretary Chow hurriedly said, "The Parliament building is still counting the votes across the country. It's already at the stage of review and verification. There should be results before 5 o'clock this afternoon." General Ji nodded. "Keep an eye on them. I have a meeting to attend." The Army's Supreme Council was paying close attention to Hua Xiaoheng and the others' plight. They could not afford to relax for even a moment. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Gu Nianji and Song Jining arrived at Sea City's seaside and prepared to board the ship. This time, in order to get as close as possible to the place where Hua Xiaoheng and the others were besieged by the Japanese frogmen, they didn't use a warship. Instead, they used a scientific research ship from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Of course, although this ship was called a scientific research ship, it was actually a modified warship. Just like the Huaxia Empire's fishery administration boat, it had the side function of expanding territory. As soon as they boarded the research ship that looked like a light destroyer, Gu Nianji and Song Jining got busy. The equipment Song Jining brought this time was indeed very advanced. It was so advanced that she didn't even bring an assistant and actually used Gu Nianji as her assistant. As she installed the equipment, she explained how to use it to Gu Nianji. By the time the equipment was installed, Gu Nianji had already memorized most of its functions. The research ship sailed towards the coordinates where Hua Xiaoheng had last sent the signal. The ship's radar constantly scanned for signals at sea. Sure enough, as soon as they left the 12 nautical mile territorial waters and entered the Huaxia Empire's maritime exclusive economic zone, they detected strong electromagnetic interference. The ship's radar instantly failed. Director Song, the electromagnetic interference started here. The soldier who had previously served on the military rescue mission explained the situation to Song Jining. All the ships that passed through here found that they couldn't determine their direction and later returned. Don't you think this route is very quiet today? Song Jining looked at the endless sea. Indeed, this was originally the busiest sea route. The port of Sea City was the largest container port on the entire Blue Planet, but there were pitifully few ships here today. Gu Nianji listened from the side and smiled as she flicked her finger on the computer screen. The Japanese really know how to kill two birds with one stone. It seems that in addition to coveting our country's sophisticated technology, they are also envious of our country's largest container port. Because their electromagnetic interference not only trapped our soldiers, but also obstructed our sea route. Even if it was only for a day, it would cause astronomical losses. This was the first night watch. Today was the third night watch. Today was the first day of September. Everyone hurry up and cast your guaranteed monthly votes. The second night watch at 1 p.m., the third night watch at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you Beth1211 for tipping 30,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Congratulations to Beth1211 for becoming the 23rd leader of Hello Major General. Mwah. P.S. This month everyone feel free to cast your monthly votes. I will definitely do the third night watch every day. When I add the second night watch, it will be the fourth night watch, okay? Chapter 1100. Strong electromagnetic interference not only besieged our soldiers, but also blocked our shipping routes? The last reason that Gu Nianji mentioned was something that the military personnel hadn't thought of. They glanced at each other and silently added another entry to the Japanese's account book. Song Jining ignored the layers of meaning that Gu Nianji had said. When she saw the strong electromagnetic interference frequency on the instrument, her attention was completely drawn to it. Nianji, clear the field. We can start working. Song Jining buried her head in data records and really treated Gu Nianji like an assistant. Gu Nianji couldn't have asked for more. She quickly said to the officers in the room, "You guys go out and stand guard first. We have to try to see if we can counter electromagnetic interference." The officers quickly said, "We tried it before but it didn't work at all." Gu Nianji looked at Song Jining, but Song Jining's eyes were completely fixed on the display screen of the instrument. He had no intention of answering. She could only turn around and smile apologetically. "When we succeed this time, Director Song will tell you how to counter electromagnetic interference." The officers understood what Gu Nianji meant and didn't stay any longer. They pushed the door open and went to stand guard on the ship. Song Jining heard the door close and frowned at Gu Nianji. When did Japan become so strong in electromagnetic interference? Gu Nianji was speechless. "No, I don't think this level of electromagnetic interference can be released by Japan." Song Jining shook her head and began to perform various data analysis on the keyboard. Gu Nianji watched for a while and didn't quite understand, but she could see that the data was really high. She whispered, "It might not be Japanese. You know, the United States has stationed troops in Japan. I think their base is not far from here." Song Jining made a long "oh" sound. "That's more like it." I said that if Japan had this kind of electromagnetic interference technology, they would have already developed it. Why would they send so many special forces soldiers for Hong Kongquan's little thing? It seemed that General Ji really told Song Jining everything. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and didn't interrupt. She quietly waited for Song Jining to analyze the electromagnetic interference data. Only after the intensity and intensity were determined could anti-interference be carried out according to the frequency. Gu Nianji was bored, so she turned on the computer next to her. She wanted to use the Nandu communication satellite signal to connect to the internet and search for the U.S. military base network in Japan. However, there was no signal from the Nandu satellite communication system at all. The electromagnetic shielding was probably too strong. Gu Nianji had no choice but to give up surfing the internet. She turned to look at Song Jining, who was working on the equipment, and whispered, "Miss Song, what can I do for you?" Song Jining didn't even raise her head. She used the flash drive to download some complicated calculations and said, "Help me calculate these numbers." Gu Nianji took the flash drive and inserted it into her laptop. She looked at the data and quickly wrote a small calculation program. She entered the data and the program began to calculate. In less than 3 minutes the results were out. Gu Nianji showed the calculation results to Song Jining. "Miss Song, do you think this is correct? So fast?" Song Jining was very surprised. She had also used a calculator in the lab, but it wasn't as fast as Gu Nianji. It took her 15 to 20 minutes to complete the calculations. Gu Nianji returned the flash drive. Song Jining opened it on her computer and her eyes lit up. "Nianji, you really figured it out in 3 minutes." With Gu Nianji's help, Song Jining was like a tiger that had grown wings. Countless data was quickly analyzed and restored on her instrument. The opponent's electromagnetic interference was analyzed thoroughly by her side step by step. The most effective way to combat electromagnetic interference was to use a spear to attack a shield. However, you need to know the model of the opponent's spear and the material of their shield. This was the most difficult part of anti-electromagnetic interference. It could be said that all the existing instruments and algorithms on the blue planet, none of them could effectively analyze the strong electromagnetic interference released by the Japanese this time. Unfortunately, they met their nemesis Song Jining. The strong electromagnetic interference this time was only slightly weaker than the one she had encountered on Hua Xiaoheng's private plane. However, that time he was on a plane. He couldn't see the sky or the ground, and he couldn't find the source of the electromagnetic interference. The difficulty and intensity were even greater. This time it was much easier for Song Jining to deal with it at sea. She quickly discovered the source of the strong electromagnetic interference this time. East longitude, north latitude, the strong electromagnetic interference source is in this position. Song Jining pointed to a coordinate on the locator with a solemn expression. "Give this data to the Navy and let them clear it at a fixed point." As soon as the opponent's strong electromagnetic interference source was cleared, Song Jining would quickly release her own strong electromagnetic interference to catch the opponent off guard. Gu Nianji happily agreed and took the data out to find the officers from just now. The officers were scattered on the deck in several important hiding spots in the rear cabin, responsible for invisible security. Gu Nianji remembered that one of them had the highest military rank, a colonel. She found that person and said, "This is the coordinate location of the strong electromagnetic interference source that Director Song found. Can you clear it at a fixed point?" The colonel looked at the data and frowned. "This data is a bit familiar, Gu Nianji. So they had found a strong electromagnetic interference source. Then how could the rescue mission fail?" The colonel took out his electronic notepad, tapped a few times on it, pulled up the data and said, "Look, I remember now. This is the place where Major General Hua last sent a message." Gu Nianji's heart tightened. The Japanese were too cunning. They were deliberately making things difficult for them. First, they were sure that they couldn't analyze this strong electromagnetic interference, so they openly installed it not far from Hua Xiaoheng and the others. Second, even if there was a 1 in a million chance that they could find the source of the electromagnetic interference, it would make it impossible for them to eliminate it at a fixed point. Gu Nianji looked at the coordinate data in the colonel's hand, and then looked at the data in her own hand. She couldn't help but say, "I remember you sent out drones. Why didn't you shoot them all?" However, with such strong electromagnetic interference, the drones would be disrupted and unable to hit the target, right? The colonel smiled bitterly. "We were all so lucky. We suddenly used drones and caught the Japanese off guard. They didn't have time to use strong electromagnetic interference. Later, when we withdrew the drones, the Japanese installed strong electromagnetic interference. So, this is not only to block Major General Hua's communication and cause trouble for the ships coming and going, but also to guard against our drones. Gu Nianji clicked her tongue. This is killing 3 birds with 1 stone. I underestimated them. The colonel smiled awkwardly. He only wanted to resist the electromagnetic interference, then get in touch with Hua Xiaoheng and the others to rescue them. He didn't think about anything else. Gu Nianji was just saying it. The Japanese had always regarded the Huaxia Empire as a competitor. In the past, they had wanted nothing more than to destroy the Huaxia Empire, so no matter what they did to harm the interests of the Huaxia Empire, Gu Nianji wouldn't be surprised. This was a country that had never deeply reflected on its war crimes, so there was no need to have any hope for it. They must not be afraid to speculate about it with the greatest malice. Okay, then what should we do? Gu Nianji rubbed her palms. Do you want me to go on your behalf? Give me a diving suit and I can swim to that place. Of course not. The colonel was shocked and looked at her strangely. Why do you want to go? Don't you know that the other side is the most elite frogman unit in the Japanese Marine Corps? There are also more than 100 SAT Special Forces soldiers. These people are very powerful. Gu Nianji was speechless. I just want to go and try. Can't I? Gu Nianji's eyes drifted. How long have our soldiers been besieged? The colonel looked at his watch. It's been almost 6 hours. Gu Nianji's heart tightened and she panicked. Then why aren't you giving the order? Why don't you let me go? I can swim fast, and I'm smart. Miss Gu, why are you so enthusiastic? The colonel suddenly felt that Gu Nianji was a little suspicious. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Gu Nianji's current identity was only Song Jinning's assistant to the colonel. Did he need to be so enthusiastic? He even wanted to go into the water himself to rescue them. I'm doing this for Major General Hua. Gu Nianji quickly explained to the colonel. I understand that Director Song is personally participating in the rescue. After all, Major General Hua is her son. But what about you? Who is Major General Hua to you? The colonel squinted at Gu Nianji. It was the 2nd watch. It was the 3rd watch. Today was the 1st day of September. Everyone hurry up and cast your guaranteed monthly votes. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. P.S. This month everyone please feel free to cast your monthly votes. I will definitely cast the 3rd watch every day. When I add the 3rd watch it will be the 4th watch. Moi. Chapter 1101. Who is Major General Hua to you? This sentence flashed through Gu Nianji's mind, and countless thoughts flashed through her mind in an instant. She opened her mouth and blurted out, He's my hero. Hua Xiaoheng was indeed a hero in her heart, in the past, present, and future. The Navy colonel was unmoved. The corners of his mouth twitched and he shook his head with a chuckle. Little girl, are you acting in an idle drama? Don't cause trouble. Go and be Superintendent Song's assistant. We'll be responsible for the rescue. We don't need a little girl like you. Many of our soldiers are good at swimming and we also have our own frogman troops. As he spoke, he went out to discuss countermeasures with several other naval officers. Gu Nianji looked at his receding figure and couldn't help feeling annoyed. However, she found it even more difficult to say that she was Hua Xiaoheng's wife. Gu Nianji shrugged. Although she knew the other party wouldn't agree, she couldn't help but mention it. People always had to have dreams. What if he agreed? She returned to the place where Song Jinning was debugging the equipment and told her what the Navy colonel had just said. In the end, she said regretfully, But I really want to try it myself. That place is where Major General Hua and the others are besieged. Song Jinning was slightly taken aback. Xiaoheng and the others are besieged there? Oh no, if that's the case, it's very dangerous to eliminate them. It's very dangerous, so the colonel said to send people there. He also said that we also have frogman troops. Gu Nianji leaned back on a sofa in the room, looked up at the ceiling of the cabin and muttered, But I really want to go there myself. Song Jinning heard that they were also going to send frogman troops and breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, let's use anti-electromagnetic interference so they won't get lost again. The last rescue failed because of the other party's strong electromagnetic interference, which caused the search ships and frogmen to get lost in the ocean. Gu Nianji perked up. Okay. What do you need help with, Miss Song? You operate this instrument. Song Jinning demonstrated it to her. I'll operate that one. Actually, one is enough, but this time I want to try operating two at the same time. One uses the other party's electromagnetic frequency for anti-interference, and the other releases our own strong electromagnetic interference. Remember, we should be twice as strong as them and we can cover a larger area. If it succeeds, I'll gradually expand it. I want to test the maximum value this instrument can reach. Gu Nianji nodded. Got it. When do we start? Song Jining looked at her watch. In 5 minutes. According to the test results just now, I found that the opponent's strong electromagnetic interference will change frequency every 5 minutes. This is also the time when it is the most vulnerable, and anti-interference is the most effective. Gu Nianji admired Song Jining from the bottom of her heart. She only wanted to say that Song Jining was beautiful and everything she said was right. 5 minutes later, the Navy's 3-man frogman team quietly went underwater. At the same time, Song Jining's strong electromagnetic interference and Gu Nianji's anti-electromagnetic interference began to be cast. Invisible electromagnetic waves converged in the air, collided, cancelled each other out and regenerated each other. This kind of destruction and freshmen fighting on an invisible battlefield was very difficult to determine victory and defeat in an instant. But with Song Jining and Gu Nianji fighting side by side, the opponent's strong electromagnetic interference finally began to die down and slowly weakened after a while. The frogmen soldiers who went into the sea found that their GPS could be used again and were ecstatic. They quickly swam in the direction where Wuxia had sent the last message. That was also where the opponent had released the strong electromagnetic interference source. The 3-man combat team swam quickly for half an hour and gradually approached the coordinates given to them by Song Jining. It was quiet here with strange rocks and many corals and coral reefs. Colorful sea fish swam in the middle and it looked beautiful. It was as leisurely as an aquarium. The 3 frogmen soldiers were not in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery here. Instead, they took the detector and began to look for the strong electromagnetic interference source. The 3 of them wandered around the bottom of the sea for half an hour before they determined the location of the strong electromagnetic interference source. They were particularly excited and immediately sent a message to the scientific research ship. Target confirmed. Clear it immediately. Target confirmed. Clear it immediately. The 3 frogmen soldiers happily swam towards the strong electromagnetic interference source. It was a small black cube box. They couldn't tell what material it was made of, but it felt very thick and heavy. This is the strong electromagnetic interference emitted by this thing. I really can't tell. The 3 frogmen soldiers swam around the thing for a while and found that it was firmly stuck to the reef and couldn't be broken off. Let me do it, let's destroy it completely. A frogman soldier took out an underwater assault rifle. Get out of the way, I'll shoot. Just as he raised his gun, a long, thin iron rope suddenly swept silently from behind. The 3 frogmen soldiers felt the turbulence in the water and knew something was wrong. They quickly slid to the side and avoided the attack of the thin iron rope with a sharp cone. The 3 of them were scared out of their wits and quickly swam away. By the time they wanted to swim over again, the Japanese frogmen had already discovered them, and more than a dozen of them rushed over together. There were only 3 frogmen soldiers on their side, and they were immediately surrounded by the enemy. They were not afraid. They picked up the latest QBS-06 underwater assault rifle developed by the Wuxia Empire and aimed at the Japanese frogmen rushing over. Compared with the Russian-made APS underwater assault rifle used by the Japanese frogmen, the newly developed QBS-06 underwater assault rifle of the Wuxia Empire was faster, more accurate and more ruthless. The lethality of its special bullets was not on the same order of magnitude as that of the APS. Although there were only 3 people on their side with the QBS-06 underwater assault rifle, it was only a matter of time before they could face more than a dozen enemies. Before the enemy's bullets could reach them, their bullets had already penetrated their diving suits and masks. More than a dozen Japanese frogmen died in the hands of the Wuxia Empire's frogmen soldiers. The 3 of them killed the invading Japanese frogmen, made a victory sign to each other, and went to continue to study the strong electromagnetic interference source. Again, before they could get rid of the interference source, the Japanese frogmen rushed over aggressively again. This time there were more than 30 people, double the number of people last time. Let's disperse. The 3 frogmen on their side communicated with each other through the intercom in their masks. 3 directions can disperse the enemy's pursuers. They couldn't stay in one place anymore. It would be bad if they were captured alive by the enemy. The 3 of them had made up their minds, and one of them suddenly turned around and fired a shot at the strong electromagnetic interference source. The other two swam out in the opposite direction at the same time like arrows. As expected, the Japanese frogmen surrounding them were shocked and were about to chase after them when they suddenly heard a loud rumbling sound above their heads. They saw more and more Japanese ships appear on the sea level above their heads. At the same time, buoys that looked like thin iron pipes were thrown down from the ship, circling the place where Hua Xiaoheng and the others were. Such a circular strong electromagnetic interference simply magnified the interference source countless times. After the other party dropped the buoys with strong electromagnetic interference, 3 of their frogmen took advantage of the chaos to escape, and one of them was injured. An hour later they returned to the scientific research ship, all exhausted and panting. They said to Song Jining, who was waiting for them anxiously, "Director Song, the other party's big ship came over and threw a lot of buoys. Our GPS lost its direction almost instantly, and we swam back in the direction determined by the naked eye." They swam for a full hour from a distance of half an hour. In the process they were chased by the Japanese frogmen and fired countless shots. One of their frogmen soldiers was unfortunately shot and has now been sent back to shore by speedboat for surgery. Just below sea level, the coordinates calculated by Song Jining showed that there were coral reefs. Hua Xiaoheng and the others had been hiding in a reef cave next to a coral reef for 8 hours. The communication had been restored for a while, and Hua Xiaoheng hurriedly contacted the base, then was transferred to the scientific research ship. Knowing that Song Jining and Gu Nianji were both there, he felt a strange excitement in his heart. Although he had always been very calm, this time when he was talking to the other side, his low magnetic voice trembled slightly, and it was even more exciting. But before long their communication was cut off again, and they didn't have time to go out to meet the 3 frogmen soldiers who had come to destroy the strong electromagnetic interference source. Because Song Jining's plan was to first destroy the strong electromagnetic interference source, and then deal with the Japanese frogmen that surrounded Hua Xiaoheng and the others, so that they could be rescued. Unfortunately, because of the sudden arrival of the Japanese warships, this plan completely failed. Looking at the huge shadow that suddenly appeared on the sea level above their heads and the thousands of thin iron ropes hanging down from the sea buoys, Hua Xiaoheng clenched the gun in his hand. The oxygen in their scuba tanks could last at most 3 hours. If they couldn't be rescued within 3 hours, then they would fight to the death with those Japanese. Gu Nianji was restless after listening to the 3 frogmen's recollections on the scientific research ship. Especially when she heard them say that the Japanese warships had dropped a lot of buoys, which floated on the sea like huge mosquito coils, and that there were many long tendrils under the buoys, all the way to the bottom of the sea. She was even more frightened. They were all made of high-quality iron, and each one was like an electromagnetic magnifier. Could Song Jining cope with this level of electromagnetic interference? Gu Nianji stood at the bow of the ship with her arms crossed and looked in Hua Xiaoheng's direction. On the boundless sea, the clouds and water were vast and misty, and even the Japanese warships could be vaguely seen. But so what if she could see it? "You're just a scientific research ship. Do you really think you're a warship?" Gu Nianji kept complaining in her heart to ease her anxiety. What could she do to help Hua Xiaoheng? She picked up the binoculars and saw the strings of thin iron pipe buoys thrown down from the Japanese warships. Somehow she felt that the scene was familiar. Slowly a thought suddenly came to her mind. The waters of the Blue Hole. Didn't this scene look like the waters of the Blue Hole that she had experienced before? This was the 3rd watch. Today was the 3rd watch. Today was the first day of September. Everyone hurry up and cast your guaranteed monthly votes. P.S. This month everyone feel free to cast your monthly votes. I will definitely cast it at the 3rd watch every day. When I add the 2nd watch it will be at the 4th watch. Today it will be about 10,000 words. Mwah. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.